if we could have Pastor Malcolm stand.
This is a reading from Psalm 111. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart, in the company of the upright, in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Full of honor and majesty is his work, and his righteousness endures forever. Let's pray. Lord God, it is in local community and local government that you do your most intimate work. We pray, Lord, that you would be amongst this assembly, that you would put in the hearts of all those attending this meeting your word and your love. Fill us, Lord, with the love you give us in your Son, and fill us with your Spirit, that we may speak honestly, openly, and lovingly. We pray this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. If we can find down for the pledge of allegiance, and please remove your hands. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. And before we begin, please remember we are recording, so in the interest of that, if we could keep the talking down in between, so that people that are listening online have an opportunity to listen to the discussion today. Attendance by Auditor Wilson. Councilman Schumacher.
Here.
Councilwoman Arcadia. Here. Councilwoman Davis.
Here.
Councilwoman Bierenstedt.
Here.
And Mayor Bergman. Here. First on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I would like to move to amend the agenda to remove agenda item 11, that open records request. I will ask the auditor to put that on for October 23rd meeting.
And also item 12, please.
And item 12. October 23rd, move those.
And if I could, I would like to move item 17 and just combine it with number 14. That way they'll cover another just meeting.
All right, so then we would be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
We have the first by Councilwoman Davis. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Councilwoman Artavia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. Next, we will consider the consent agenda. Under that, we have the 9/25/25 council minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for the minutes of 9/25/25.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Shoemaker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I apologize. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And so moved. All right, so now is the public comment period. City Auditor, were there any email comments?
You can speak on your mics a little better. We can't hardly hear the auditor, what you just said.
I just said I put it in her packet.
I can't hear nothing.
Her mic died. Hang on. Apologies.
I got the full. I just said that I put it in her packet.
All right, we do have an email from Michaela Pierce. Dear members of the City Council, I am writing as a homeowner and resident directly affected by the current discussion regarding Boulevard Rock and rock parking paths. As I understand, this topic will be addressed during the upcoming council meeting on Thursday. I respectfully submit that my comments be entered into the record, as I am unable to attend in person. I currently have a crushed concrete driveway on my property. It's well maintained, safe, and fully functional. I firmly believe that this type of driveway surface should not be considered a violation of city code. Crushed concrete is durable, cost-effective, and environmentally responsible option. It allows for proper drainage, reduces off runoff, and utilizes recycled materials. Benefits that align with broader sustainability goals. Requiring homeowners to replace this material with traditional concrete places an unnecessary financial burden on residents, especially when the current surface is not causing any issues. In addition, I want to express that I am voicing these concerns in good faith and in the interest of fairness. I respectfully ask that there be no retaliation or punitive action taken for raising these concerns, as I have not received any violations to date. Therefore, I respectfully request the following: that no fines or penalties be issued to homeowners with existing crushed concrete driveways, boulevard rock, or rock parking paths that are in good condition. That residents not be required to remove or replace these services unless there is a clear safety or structural concern. And that the council reconsider recognizing crushed concrete or similar materials as compliant for driveways and parking use, particularly on existing properties. I urge the council to consider the practical and financial realities facing homeowners. I should not be penalized for making a responsible and environmentally conscious decision for my property. I hope you will take this into serious consideration during Thursday's discussion. And then also, please ensure this letter is entered into the record for the meeting. I appreciate your time and service to our community. Okay, and so I do want to thank everyone for attending tonight. It is wonderful to see so many people in the audience. And at this time, I am going to open the floor for public comment on current agenda items or with receiving recent agenda items. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to share their thoughts. Council will not engage in debate, but may ask clarifying questions. And as a courtesy, if someone has already spoken to your issue or concern, please allow others to come up and voice theirs. So we can always come back after. And at this time, the podium is open. You will need to sign your name, address, and what agenda item number you're discussing. And just so you know, this is not a city council decision requiring that that signing in. It is actually legislative action that was taken this last session.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Alexis Burgard. I am a City of Lincoln resident. I'm here today to raise concerns regarding the beautification efforts taken by the City of Lincoln. Although I appreciate the beautifications efforts as some areas need it, I think there's way more important issues our city needs to focus on and spend our taxpayer dollars more wisely. I have tried to reach out to the administration office on 2 separate occasions via the City of Lincoln website with no response. I'm hoping to get some answers today. I received a phone call on August 27th from the administration office regarding a follow-up for a certification letter I received in June for beautification at my residence. My lawn is one of the nicest looking lawns in the city. You would see that on my water bill, would agree to that statement, and if you drove by my property and saw for yourself. Across the street from my home is a small parcel of land where I need to maintain on a private street. I live in an HOA. I should mention that the City of Lincoln doesn't even touch the street I live on, as we take care of our own snow removal and street maintenance. Although this area doesn't look as nice as my actual yard, I still maintain it. I have been battling some serious health issues this year, and I'm unable to tend to this small area every week due to the steep slope and need to be careful. However, it has been maintained regularly when I'm able. Next spring, this area will be covered with pea gravel similar to my neighbors, so I don't need to mow the area anymore. My other neighbors also may plan to do the same. Are we even able to do this now with this new ordinance? Even with our street being in an HOA. There are many worse properties throughout the city that need to be a lot more tending to, that you need to focus on. Several properties with weeds in yards and driveways, several vehicles parked in yards on Riley Road, for example, the abandoned looking home on Libby Road plus one on Edgerly Lane. Do I need to continue? After that phone call, I went and measured the area and it was around 5 inches in height. My property at the time was well under the 8-inch threshold, so let me ask, why was I contacted on this matter when I was not in violation of the city code? For your information, the area was mowed that evening and weed sprayed. Pictures were also taken as evidence. Again, please explain to me how our taxpayer dollars are being utilized. Public Works driving around inspecting city lawn should be their last priority when they should be out improving public property. Improving public property should be their first priority. It sounds like poor time management if you ask me. I have security footage at my residence to support this claim. Mind you, given this day, it was around 11:30 a.m. on a bright sunny day and on a bright sunny summer morning. The roundabout at 66th Street and Lincoln Road, as well as several weeds near the sidewalks, crosswalks on 66th and Dolan, weeds on the streets plus more. These areas are definitely in violation of the 8-inch ordinance. Before the city of Lincoln comes at me and others on my property that isn't even in violation of city code, take a look at city property that is in violation of city code. I had also requested from the city auditor for a total dollar amount spent on the certified letters mailed out this summer regarding the beautification subject. Again, I'm still waiting a reply. I'm fairly certain that a good amount of this spend was completely unnecessary. Our tax-paying citizens deserve to know, and I would like to pursue an open records request to obtain this information. This concludes my testimony and public comment, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Can you repeat your address, please?
I wish not to say that via microphone here, but I can certainly give that to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, second call for public comment.
I'm Mel Breckle. I live in Lincoln, 19 McDougal Drive. Pardon?
Fine.
Anyway, we as homeowners are taxpayers. And here again, somebody's telling me and the city of Lincoln's personnel what we can do on our own property. From the curb back 15 feet is boulevard, city property. We have to maintain it. From that point on is our personal property, which we get taxed on heavily. And this is to me, a crock. If I decide to put something on my property, I don't see if it's within non-safety type situation, that's a whole different ballgame. But to have a 2-wheel trailer, a bicycle, or anything else sitting along your home, that is not justification. This just turned into a whole different part of a country. And in that part, it's called communism. It's totally ridiculous. So I urge whoever, vote no on this. It's asinine. You go over to Venteen. What are you folks gonna do with those homes over there? I just drove by. They've got partial dirt driveways, then concrete. Who's gonna pay for that? Stop and think about it. Putting gravel or concrete on is not increasing value. I checked with 3 realtors today. So I urge that you guys stop and think, because you want this town to grow. And I do too. But you're not gonna get people when they got dumb laws that you're planning on enforcing and doing. Is it a city or an HOA? If I wanted to live with that, I would move to an HOA. So you guys think about what your situation is going to encounter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Hi, my name is Amber Grouse, and I just want to say, like, I appreciate the efforts on beautification. However, with the rock situation that is being discussed, that is a concern. And one of the main questions that I have with that is, for people that have the rock that comes all the way out to the curb, that is against ordinance according to what we're speaking on, right? So they're supposed to bring it back however many feet for the boulevard. However, you have people that have really fancy landscaping, you know, that stamped concrete stuff that comes all the way down to the curb and also landscape with rock. So at what point does the ordinance affect whomever, right? So whether it's somebody with a camper pad that has rock, somebody that has landscaped and paid professionals to come in and do that, it just opens up a can of worms for who are you going to pick and choose as to who's going to get fined for that. So I would just appreciate you guys to consider that with how this affects everybody in multiple capacities beyond just those that have camper pads with the rock and things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I live at 74 Benteen. And here about 51 years ago, I asked the city if I could put cement down. They said, no, I can't, because there's a certain percentage of cement to land. So I didn't do it, so I put crushed asphalt down. Now you're telling me that after the cement went up 4 or 5 times more than it used to be, that I gotta put it in. That's insane. And on Benteen alone, there's gotta be 20 or 30 places that would have to tear this stuff up. Are you guys trying to make more money by putting a fine on people, or I don't understand. This is completely insane. I'll write my name down. The thing of it is that 20 years ago, I would have done it. But now I'm retired. Now you're trying to tell me to take another $20,000 out of my retirement to put cement down. That's insane. That's not, my God, I asked and they said, no, I can't because of the percentages. Whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you think that anybody else?
I'm gonna run my name down first. I understand beautification. We want a nice looking town, right? I think we should start focusing on what looks terrible. I don't believe that putting rock all the way up to the boulevard, especially on my street where there's 16 houses that have it. I think we need to work on creating and getting rid of the weeds within that boulevard, okay? Now, some of them look very nice. Mine, I feel looks retarded because it's not all the way to the boulevard and it's grass. Sorry. Also, we just need to work on what's there. Beautify what we have. Don't go after people that already have this in, because I was told those people have a grandfathered in. You've also approved variances that allowed people to put rock in there and then turn around and deny my same variance. Okay? Please work on what we have. I think we can all agree on that. If people want to take their camper and put it in their grass, like my fellow neighbor, he can do so. Keep it maintained. That's all I ask. Make it look nice. If he parks it there and weed eats around the camper and it looks nice, so what? Utilize the space that we have. Right? Our yards aren't very big. We want campers, we want boats, we want this, that, and the other sheds, place to put our stuff. Let us put our stuff where we want it. It's our property, but we need to maintain it. Right? Do we all agree on that? Because I don't mind. I would love, to have my rock all the way up to the curb, because it would look so much better. I had difficulty growing grass there. I had to rerun my water line, and it made it a pain. It really did. And it also put me, a year behind on that project. And I don't want to get fined for having weeds there. And I get that. But, that's my peace of mind for that. Is there any questions for me before I go?
I have 2 questions. Can I get your name?
Eric Remenzi,
And then when was that variance? When did you put that in?
about a year ago.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Eric.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll open up the floor.
I have some concerns a little bit too. I says it's kind of sad. I've been out here almost 50 years. I live on Carlin. We had issues with water in our driveway. And I had to replace the cement twice already. So I made it like a little man-made dugout and put P-rock and put some perennials in there just to make it look nice. But it has helped a lot with the water issue. Now, they were supposed to finish the storm sewer in our area, and they stopped by our neighbors and never finished it. So here I was stuck. So we took it upon ourselves to make this little man-made dugout. And it's not next to the street, it's in a ways, and has really helped a lot with our cement situation. And I've seen a few others too that have been really nice too with the P-rock. I mean, I've seen a lot worse things between weeds. Keep them mowed down and just pick up your garbage. And I mean, it'd be beautiful. I mean, it was very nice when we first moved out here. We were all beginners. We all had yards that it overwhelmed us. It was a lot of fun. And I would kind of live in a neighborhood. I mean, I love working in my yard. I'm out there all the time. And I'm just hoping that this will not make things heartbreaking for everybody else. And that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Floor is open. Yes.
Hi, my name's Chuck Kaiser. We've lived out here now about 12 years. We bought our place with the rock in front of it right next to the curb, probably about 6 feet or so, and it kind of curves around. I think we have a decent yard. We keep the weeds out. I don't think we should have to pay to take that rock out, re-landscape it, put grass in again, water it. I mean, it just ain't right. It's, now I've talked about building a garage. I can't cut my curb out. For one reason, I don't know. I really don't care if the whole curb is cut out. Mine, the neighbors, whoever. You guys are just going up and beyond to make things harden for people. Yes, I could probably afford to put my cement in there, but why should I pay for it? And it's on your guys' land. I mean, you won't let a person take a curb up, but you're all worried about that. And there's a lot of people, I'm sure, just got rocks in their yard and whatever. Everybody's budget is different. If you guys want to do this, then you all pay for it. Do I hear anybody volunteering? No. And like he said before, he's retired. I'm about ready to retire. I want to travel. I want to enjoy my life. We've all worked hard in our life. And why should we now get penalized for that? It just is not fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marlin, I live on Carlin, I shoot at Marlin and the stars singing all the done. We've been here 20 years. Moving from Beach, North Dakota to here. We really do enjoy Lincoln. We love this place. It's a great place to live and work. It's a working man's town. And because of that, there are growth issues. These are growth issues. Everything we're addressing is growth issues. How do we make it fair? How do we make it right? I wrote 11 points. I don't think I have time for all 11, but since we live in Carlin, we have no curb and gutter. We didn't even have a choice about curb and gutter. It was done and replaced. I have 19 grandchildren and about 7 of them are driving. If they all come, there is no place to park on the street. And if you do park on the street, you're ticketed. So when we added onto our house, and we've done many, many improvements in our place since we bought the place in 20 years. And our appraised values almost tripled. And so we pay taxes accordingly. So we understand the growth issues of paying more taxes and then having more responsibility and having to take care of your property. So when we did that, we have an easement on the side of our house that goes to the back where the cable is and everything else. We were told, again, it's really hard to be consistent in your rules, that we cannot put concrete over an easement because it has to be removed to get access. We told asphalt was also not an option because that would have to be dug up. We had to pay for replacing the asphalt. So we did not go with gravel all the way to the front. We just went to the front of the house and we membraned and did everything according to the rules of the inspector at that time. That was to membrane it, gravel it with a large size gravel and place our trailer on it and a few other things. So we did that. We fenced our property. We've done other things, always trying to make improvements. And I think it's hard to see us being criticized or fined even for our property when we work hard to make improvements. Now that I'm retired, yes, I'm on fixed income, and many of them in Carlin and that older part of town are all on fixed income. It's a little bit difficult. So I'm going to recommend that you phase in some of these requests. I don't think you can maybe grandfather the whole city, but there are parts of the city where you can't. You can't expect us to park on the street. It is a violation. We will be fined. So where do we park? On the grass? Well, that's not legal either. We park on our rocks. And what do? Park on the neighbors and make them mad. So it becomes a difficult thing so I'm going to recommend that you leave the gravel. I don't think there's anything wrong with well-maintained gravel. But again, you have to deal with the weeds. We already have rules about that. So it's not a change, but it's just some things you need to leave alone. you can make more. You know, there was an old saying in the West. I grew up in Kildare, North Dakota. Never kick a skunk. When you kick a skunk, you get a stink. And I think you may have at least took a swat at one. And there's gonna be some really upset people. There's a number of people that are not here because they've already taken off south or other places, so they can't speak either. So I'm trying to speak for as many as we can. And there may be another way to go around this and beautification thing too. And I'm just gonna make this final statement is that when we visited our former place of residence in Beach, North Dakota, they did a beautification award. And they blocked off parts of the city and when you made a beautiful home, you got a little extra sticker. Or you got a little bit of a break, you got a certificate or something to do. So a beautification award motivated those who wanted to do that. And it was a good way to go about it instead of, my studies was in HR, human resources. And even as a pastor for 23 years, I know there are many ways to motivate people. I find that the carrot works much better than the stick. And you can go about it any way you want. I appreciate your services. You've done a lot of things, and these are growth issues. These are issues that we have to deal with and wrestle with. And so we have to consider the older part of town, please. Consider that part of town and consider the incomes and consider the taxation, how much, all of these things play into the issues. So my wife was here, she said, make sure you cover all of them. Yeah, fines and threats don't fit very well with me. And knowing that if you're in our house, somebody's gonna come with a sticker on your door or say you're in violation, that's awkward, especially when you worked hard. This is not an HOA. There may be grandfather rights for certain parts of town. I don't know. You have to deal with those things. And there's certain parts are gonna have easements that you just can't do those things. Every time it rains, we have Lake Carlin. We have 8 inches of water in the driveway. That's and the drain manhole is 10 feet away and the water does not go in the drain. So someone has failed in the engineering of that street. And if our neighbors had a flood, it had to go all the way across the street to get into our manhole. So those are just issues. We've dealt with it. We've kept the weeds down the best we can, but some of this is not our fault, not our responsibility. It lays in the responsibility of the city. I'm open for questions too. Anything?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The beautification award is an option. It's a motivation from the other side of the stick instead of on the hard side.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Doing tonight? Good, fantastic. $9,000 in a concrete slab in the back, 25 by 35 this past year to correct the drainage on the back of my house. $7,000 in materials for the deck that's being replaced on top of that, so I can actually walk out the back of my house. My youngest was born a little over a year ago. Couldn't breathe when he was born, maxed out the deductible, $132,000 NICU bill. I believe the president of JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, said recently in the last year that we shouldn't be buying stocks, we should be buying bullets. What's coming? It's hard enough after COVID, after everything else, to just make it. Walmart doesn't care about us, they care about their bottom line, they care about their responsibility to their shareholders. At the end of the day, major corporations don't care. There are only 7 companies propping up the entire growth of this country right now. 7. Everybody else is stagnant. Like this is just not a priority. We've got better things to do besides worrying about concrete. I would love a concrete slab. I just got one. Hopefully I can save up to get another one. But the nation is in a little bit more of a predicament than this. This is just, like dude said, asinine. I don't want a reduction in my principal. I want it to work for me. I've worked really freaking hard to make it work for me. So I can have the freedom that I'm supposed to have in this country. Instead of being an indentured servant or a wage slave to some bank account. I don't want to do that the rest of my life. I want to enjoy my kids. I don't get to see that because I'm at work all the time. I want to save my money so I can retire. And hopefully when I get there, I don't want my principal hits. I don't want $20,000 hit. Hell no way. So let's think about this. Let's think about the overall long-term 30-year trajectory, $36 trillion in debt, 9 trillion of that held by foreign countries. The rest of that is Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whatever it is, the whole entire country's house debt. When are we going to pay that off? I'm not trying to make the bank rich. I'm trying to make the country rich. So let's not do this. It's not okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the record, it wasn't coming up. I live on Eric that was in your mouth. You're about. I'm the variance that he was mad about. So, after I bought my house, I bought it brand new. I've been here for 10 years. And this variance has changed a couple of times since I bought my house. Initially, that was supposed to be maintained by the city. 5 years later, I get a fine, this fix-it ticket that's proposed to come out. I inherited the land. Okay, so now I have to maintain it. I now got everybody's birthday cards in my land. I have to clean those. I don't ask. I've never complained about all the bricks. And you can't imagine what comes through the sewer drains. I'm the first house. I get it all. I get everybody's garbage. I pick it up. That's beautification. So when I leave my home, I hit Lincoln Road. This is Lincoln Road. This is the road of Lincoln. There's weed color in people's fences on the left side. On the right side, there's somebody's blow up pool from the storm we had last week. So it's been sitting there for a week already. That's the stuff we should be focusing on. Maybe not so much what's already there. You can use my property. You can go right ahead. You can take a picture of whatever you'd like. There isn't a weed in them rocks. And that yard looks, that ditch looks phenomenal compared to what it used to. Those weeds were this tall. It took me hours to go through that. There's a board member here that could vouch for that, and I won't even name names. And that's really all I have, because I think there's like has been, I think I speak for everybody here, there's much bigger issues at hand than some simple rock landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Rob Dixon. I live on McDougal. I was a public works director out here when that ordinance came into play. And when we did that with the council members, it was for new construction only. Or if somebody in the old part of town was redoing their driveway and wanted to put rock, we had to stop them. They could only go up to the 13 feet, which is city right away. So I don't think it's really fair for these guys that had rocks for 10, 15, 20 years to have to remove them and put them into concrete. But that's what we always did. I don't know what you guys want to change it or not, but that's what we did.
Rob, do you remember the year that was put in place?
I had been about 5 years before I left. About 5 years before I left.
Okay.
And I don't know if it was kept up after I left or not, but we patrolled the city every single day, whether it was me or one of my guys would see something. They bring it up and we go check and see what they were putting in. So if it was rock, we stopped them at the 13-foot mark. Some streets are 18.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob.
So my name is James Rouse. I live on Edgerton Lane. My topic at this point really is just no matter how this goes, either way, if there is going to be a fine, I'd just like to know that whoever is going to be fined at whatever point, they at least have a time frame to try and correct the issue, whatever the decision is. I just don't think it'd be fair that everyone's had their homes the way they are, and then all of a sudden things change and it's an automatic fine if you don't get it changed, especially considering we're coming up into winter. Who knows what kind of snowfall we're gonna get, how much time we have before that hits. So I just like to have a time frame of whether or not, when the fine would actually be applied.
Thank you.
Right, is there a comment?
Madam Mayor, do online people have an opportunity to speak? There's over 40 of us here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Vicky Scholl. I live at 71 Benteen Drive. I just have a couple things. My husband and I recently moved out here, but I've lived out here for over 30 years. I grew up here. I was born out here. I've lived here in just a couple stints of years. I was gone to college and I moved back. My husband and I had a hard road to get to be able to own a house. And we decided to live in Lincoln because there was no HOA where we wanted to live. We weren't gonna be told what we can and cannot do or have on our property. And then I was told that I had to, which was new to me, that we had to register to live in Lincoln, which has never been an issue. Like, no one's ever had to do that before. And then I get letters that I have weeds in my yard, that beautification is a big thing. But when I was signing that registration letter, it said I had 2 years to get along. I moved into a house that needs to be resloped. And the stuff is overgrowing. Yes, I know, I've been trying. I even called the NDSU agricultural plant to find out how to get rid of these things, because you dig out the roots, you even just leave a little bit of the root, it bushes out again. And there's nothing I can do except for keep cutting it down. And I do, but I keep getting letters, even though I got 2 years apparently to fix this, I keep getting letters on this beautification stuff. So my question is do I get the 2 years? Or am I gonna start getting fined? Because I can't do it and there's no herbicide out there that will get rid of it. So that's my question.
Just a quick question, it's not a new.
No, it's on Benteen. And the landscaping has been there forever. It actually was like that when I grew up here. The landscape was the exact same. I inherited the landscape and the bushes and the rock and all that they have in the front yard. The reason they had it was because of how the yard is sloped. If they don't have the runoff from the gutter, it will run right into the concrete of the foundation of their house. So what I have to do to fix it is I have to get it resloped, which costs thousands of dollars. And since we just moved in, we don't have that because we had to put it down as a down payment on our house. So, and I was told I got 2 years, but every month I keep getting a letter saying that I need to fix this. So my question is do I get my 2 years and you guys leave me alone until the 2 years are up? Or am I gonna keep getting these letters every month? So that's a question I would like answered, if I could.
I think that at this, I will double check the ordinance on that. You've got, Cindy, what number are you?
71 Benteen.
71.
I mean, the old part of Benteen.
Okay.
I actually live across the street from my dad.
So I will check on that personally tomorrow. My recollection is that 2 years for your bond is on new builds.
That's what I thought, but
and if that's not what that says.
That's what I questioned that, because I said when I registered that this was an established lawn, but I knew that there was weeds and issues with the landscaping, and they said you have 2 years to do that.
Right, and
So
I will
that's-
double check on that.
So that's why I'm concerned, because I was told one thing and now you guys are doing something else. So I need consistency. Would be greatly appreciated.
I will double check on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So like I said before, we moved out here, the rock was already there, so I feel we should be grandfathered in on that alone. And one thing I really think that a lot of people put rock off in the curb is because when the snowplow comes through, pushes all the snow on the grass, guess what? Every summer you're redoing that grass. So would you rather keep it nice rock? Or would you rather every year the grass is dead 5, 6, 7 feet away? I mean, I don't know, I don't mind doing yard work, I enjoy it, but why should you gotta have to redo his grass every year? And it's definitely not your fault because it snows, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, a lot of people did that for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
My turn? I need to walk. I'm not going.
Well, my name is Derek. I live up, just up the road, actually, down the road, south of here. I've lived here for 15 years now. We moved in, new area, new construction when we moved in. Since then, we've done some improvements. We've watched our neighbors move and new families come in. I'm hoping to encourage you to realize that if you want new residents and to continue this community, that they're gonna be young families. They were not gonna be able to afford $20,000 for a concrete pad at a time. And you wanna take your family camping, you need a camper, where do you park? You don't park in the grass, you can't park in the rock, you can't park in the street, where do you park? I just want you to realize that to keep the community growing, you have to understand that young families can't do what you're asking them to do. So just to let you know, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the floor is open. All right. All right.
I would like to speak if that's possible.
Yes, I was actually going to ask the deputy auditor to start calling on those. Do you have to unmute each of them individually?
No, they're not muted.
Okay.
Am I allowed to just go?
Yeah, say your name for the record, please.
Okay, my name is Lacey Brandt. I live at 89 Benteen Drive. When I purchased my home in 2022, the mass majority of my front yard is driveway, and there is a single car section of it that is concrete. The rest of it, I don't know if it's crushed concrete or if it's crushed asphalt. I'm not sure because I don't work with that kind of stuff. However, I inherited that. To me, if that was already a city violation, that should have been addressed before I was able to purchase my home. I didn't know I was walking into a city violation. I had no knowledge of that. I just thought I was buying a home in Lincoln. I find it interesting that this is something that is being considered in Lincoln when you can qualify for an agricultural loan to buy a house out here with the USDA. I agree with many people that have already spoken about how there's far more things that need to be addressed before we tell our citizens they have to rip out rocks or crushed asphalt or crushed concrete and spend a fortune to have it replaced with concrete. I'm a single income home. I'm a single mother. I don't have the means to do that. I also have to deal with a lack of city addressing my street every winter. The end of my driveway in my road turns into an ice skating rink because it doesn't get scraped off and anything that settles in front of my driveway. So if it starts to melt and people drive through it, I then have road, essentially like speed bumps in front of my home made of ice. But that's not being addressed either. And to me, that is far more of a hazard than the rocks that are already existing in my driveway that were here when I purchased my home. Those are just my thoughts. And if we were looking at the chats or whatever, I did send an email on this yesterday.
Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And next.
United Duval. And I just can't see what you guys are doing. You guys want to expand. We got retired people out here. I've been out here for 40 years out here living. And I know there's other people out here been out here long too and are retiring. We're getting people that are getting married, coming out here. They can't afford again having a big driveway and everything else. And kind of like one guy was saying, they like to go out camping and stuff. They're just coming out, they want to have kids. They can't afford all that. And we are a middle class town. We're not up north $500 million home development. We're middle class. We're trying to all try to make it, make a living, and try to have fun.
Thank you.
Live over on Customer Drive. And my name is Brian Wood. I wanted to say what was really on my mind, this gentleman by my left be taking me out. Yes, I have a camper and I have a boat beside my house parked on rock. If you guys pass this, I'm gonna have to probably sell them because I can't afford to put a concrete pad down for them. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, and I work 50 hours a week. Can't afford that expense. With everything else going up the way it is. It's just. The belt's tight. Already. Thank you.
Thank you.
The podium is open, or if there's online. Thanks.
My name is Tanner Pennington. I live right in 94 Hazelwood Drive. I really don't see the point of having concrete, when gravel looks perfectly fine. As long as it's trimmed, as long as it's weeded, as long as the people are taking care of it, it shouldn't matter. Honestly, just grass being trimmed around the trailer looks amazing. It looks honestly better than gravel. But I can understand why, gravel, or concrete, because it does look nicer. I do agree with that. But at the same time, all of us out here, we moved out here for a reason. For lower costs of everything, because we couldn't afford to live in Bismarck. And I have a 4-month-old at home right now. Like, have any of you guys paid daycare lately? I can't afford to put concrete in my house right now. I'm not gonna be able to do that for the next probably 8 years, but I have a trailer that I need to park next to my garage. So what is going to be the answer?
Thank you.
Ryan's gonna go next online.
Thank you. My name is Ryan Glass. I live on Sturgis Loop. I had to tear out my failing driveway and was told by the city that I had to put in concrete. And it cost me about $10,000 to do so in that section. I understand where everyone is coming from along the rock. And I just want the city, if they're going to make a decision on this tonight or in a future meeting, to have some kind of uniformity. I've watched some of my neighbors put in rock and then be forced to tear it out, and I've watched some put in rock and have had it left alone. And it's just not fair to everyone that does this with, if if they find out if they're going to be the ones that get fined or not fined. So I just want the city to have some kind of uniformity on this decision and put this thing to bed, because this has been going in circles for far too long.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
One more thing. On item 15, if you guys repeal that and let those businesses leave Lincoln, it will cost every resident in the city in taxes. They're part of our community. They're supporting our community. Letting them go will hurt us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Lori. I live in the city of Lincoln. We've lived here for 20 some years. We bought a home out here because, again, cheaper taxes when we moved out here. Couldn't afford to buy a house in, in Bismarck. I don't have $20,000 for concrete. I do not have gravel on my property, nor can I afford to move that in. However, I do have 2 children that drive. I'm my husband that need vehicles for 4 vehicles. When there's a storm, we park those on the side of the house on the grass to try to protect them from the hail, whatever's coming our way. When there is a snowstorm, we of course have to get those off the streets. So again, we park them on the side of the house on the grass. I don't understand. Our property is well maintained. We keep our grass green. I pay the water bill. I mean, look at my water bill. It's ridiculous. I don't understand why there is a problem with me parking my vehicles there. It is my property. So can you tell me why? Answer my question. Why is that such an issue?
Thank you, Lori.
Is there anyone else for public comment?
I don't like public speaking, but I'll jump up here. It's Mike, Global Rush. Google. Moved here in '86. Shortly thereafter, I put the gravel, Country Road. Never had a problem. Don't ever take anything. I don't know how many mayors, city council members we've had. And everyone's here for 10, 15 years. I've been here for almost 30. No one's ever mentioned anything on the side of the road, on the side of the driveway. Keep the weeds out. Well, I just fumbled with that real tough. So I feel a little creative on that, but I've never had a problem in 30 years almost. Well, after 30 years, I go, that's not approved. If you can tell me 30 years ago, 25 years ago. So. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
I'm John Schmidt. The gal had a pretty good question for you guys. It's pretty simple. Why? Who does it hurt? Who does it hurt to park a trailer right next to your drive? Whether it's grass, rock, property that every one of us paid for, or are still paying for. No answer? Anybody? Not one of you guys have an answer for it.
Yes, we can engage in public comment.
Yeah, I know.
Currently is 61 bed. When I moved there, I was told I was what, 37 tons, fresh concrete and asphalt.
I brought it. Where's it gonna go? We gotta have a plan. Someone has to remove it, someone has to replace it, and if you. No, I'm not going to. They wanted their driveway. Fine. I'm totally fine. I live there. I'm 61 Benfield, the office space for it as well. I'm for happy to help people put crushed asphalt or anything like that to get vehicles off the road, so our children can get home safe. That they don't have to weave around vehicles on the road. Now, where's the problem? Who's the concrete guy? Mr. Don. That wants to make money out. I would give all the business. This is what we're gonna enforce. Let's do it. We gotta go with. We stick together as a community. Fighting against each other ain't gonna. So. Let's try and figure it out, put it on the agenda, and come up with a solution. You don't know if you agree? Perhaps you do. But. What properties is one of the problems. I don't like it, so be it. I never asked them to. Thank you.
Don't hear it. Is there another person online that would like to speak?
I asked for a second, no one responded stating they wanted to speak.
All right, so we will call second comment. Third and final call for public comment.
Right here.
Now's the time to speak up, guys.
Okay, so I've been on this side of town for owned land out here for over 30 years. And enforcing something like this is gonna cost a whole bunch of people a whole lot of money. They're already paying taxes, everything's through the roof, paying a mortgage. You're asking these guys to go out and either spend money they don't have. There's a lot of different stories here about kids and whatnot, wanna come out here and have a nice life. If you're asking people to come out here and rip up what you already got and either take a mortgage or take some money out of the milk bucket for the kid. But that's the concrete outside of his house. That's all I got to say about it. It's just gonna cost a lot of money here. I just I don't agree with this at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess my problem is when I talked to Rob, he was the public works director at the time. And I told him what I was planning on putting in. That it was fine. So I put crushed asphalt in, use that for my camper pad. I can't afford concrete. Yes, I have toys, so people think I'm rich because I have toys. That's not how it works. Now you expect me to tear out and completely redesign my yard on that side. If it was fine then, how is it all of a sudden not fine now? And how did this all become, how did this start? Is it personal opinion? Well, I like concrete, well, I like blacktop. Where are we going with this? Um. I suck at speaking in front of people, so I'm sorry. When a building regulation rule changes, you make every previous house that's been built afraid to that? No, you do not, from that point forward. But now you want people that have had this stuff for 20, 30, 40 years, you want them to rip it out to go to this new rule. You know, when you implemented the new ordinance on when you cannot have concrete or rock in the hole. So you know from that point forward. Instead of making just blanket everybody, well, if you got it, you gotta rip it out. Well, that's not right, because that's been there for many years. And I know somebody had brought up, I think it was an engineer, about vehicles parked on blacktop or the crushed asphalt leaking and possibly getting into the groundwater. Okay, so if I put concrete in and it rains, that's just gonna run right down to the curb, right down to the creek. Yeah. You know it's going straight to that. I don't. It just, nobody's got the money to do what you guys want to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Evening, my name's Russell Larson. When my wife and I moved out here 3 years ago, we were informed that we could put crushed rock or concrete into the boulevard, and that's what we planned for. When we did, we were welcomed to Lincoln with a notice from the city saying that we would be fined significantly until it was removed. I would be fined every month. I believe it's about $500, and my wife and I ended up having to take out a significant loan to remove the crushed rock, and it sat barren for a bit. I believe I spoke with Rob, but I know I spoke with Kevin as well about what we could do. And Kevin said, well, we put concrete in the boulevard. So what I did is I filled out the paperwork and sent it into the city, and it was summarily rejected. So I went back to Kevin, I said, they rejected it. So that's just kind of the way it goes. So since then, we have seen fire hydrants out in that area have rock put in around it next to the road. We were told by Kevin that the city didn't want rock in the boulevard because it would damage the heavy equipment. Well, since the heavy equipment doesn't come down my house, down my road very often, even during snow removal, I didn't think it was a big deal. But the other side of the coin is we had a trailer pad put in when we were moving in, and we had no house next to us. Now we have neighbors, and I'm being told that we're 2 feet into their property. I don't understand how coming to Lincoln, having a new build, and not being properly informed, whether it be by the contractor or the engineer or anyone else, and how things can change momentarily. Because at this point in time, right now I'm within ordinances, but my welcome to Lincoln was not a very good welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin.
My name is Mike Conley. I'm actually a Bismarck resident, and I can feel for you sitting at a table because I get the same scrutiny. I won't state my designation. I'm here on my personal record. And I try to stay out of the jurisdictional things because it gets difficult and it makes things muddy. We're in a very interesting time, I'll say that. But last year, your 8th item of August 8th, 2024, both on your community pages and representatives that have been on the board in the past and current ones, were telling your citizens to contact Bismarck because you treat ETA and annexation issues the same way Bismarck does. And that's not true. And that in the last 10 days, right before you all made that vote, and I know some things have moved around. I was taking calls and it was really curious. And I said, you have to go back to your leadership a lot of times. And I explained what Bismarck did. But we don't have forced annexations in Bismarck. You can look at our map. There are a lot of islands right within the community that are still counting. I mean, Brendel's house up off of 3030 is one on top of Sleepy Hollows. And we found out, I'm the one that brought the ETA discussion that we've been having the joint meetings between the county and the city. I'm the first one that brought that up, and it's been an interesting process thus far. But what we found out, the plumbing code was one of the state plumbing code is, if it's within 200 meters, then you have to annex because you have to have a code. And we found out that wasn't true. That's now a choice. People want to put in a septic system, they can put in a septic system. If they want to hook up to city services, they can hook up to city services. And we're still learning as we go. The conversation's still out there. So a year later, now you got a difficult decision to make because it could be one way or another. But I would suggest anybody in that state or our jurisdictions, because it gets really, when you got people calling citizens saying, well, how does Bismarck, because they're told they do the same. There's a lot of differences. I mean, Mandan does things different than Bismarck. Some things are real similar, but but I would, if anybody has questions, say at the table and things, I'm not going to throw anybody's name out there or throw people under the bus, those type of things, but it's not for your people because these things happen fast. We're well-oiled machines. We know when our meetings are happening and things. They might find out 5 days before. They don't have time to get all their ducks in a row and let know what they think.
Can I ask what agenda?
Number 15. Sorry. I apologize.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Precious, I live on Greeley. I honestly don't know why we're even having this conversation. We've lived out here 16 years and there was never an issue with driveways. What we had to do or anything, as long as you kept your property neat and well maintained and they fit overgrown. Beautification committee was started for the problem areas. Maybe right of ways, things like that. What's happening is, I feel, is that these rules that are being instituted instead of negotiated or talked about is really ruining the city. Because people do have families. When this was first developed out here, it was for lower socioeconomic people. So I came from the East Coast. I couldn't have been happier moving out here because where I came from, it was horrible. So when you ask people to burden a family that's already having issues with paying everything else, it's creating tension and stress in families. They're worried about what's going to happen. I just don't think it's an issue that is worthy of it. And you know, you're talking about the concrete costs and things like that. But down the road, the infrastructure here is not in place for a lot of the stuff that has happened. And you have to deal with the infrastructure before you invite people in. And that's not happening. And when you have these big companies come out and you have people develop, they should be buying into being here, not just coming out here and building homes and the AI center that's in the makings. There's not enough infrastructure and we're all paying. And I think people, if they want to come out and they want to participate and be part of this community, they need to be part of have the responsibility of paying the additional cost to increase this infrastructure. Years ago, and I'm still trying to figure out if we live under Dylan's rule or if we live under home rule charter. Many years ago, I was on a home rule charter committee. We would not be in this situation if that would have been followed through. And it wasn't your administration, it was the previous that apparently dropped the ball. But the home rule charter, I got involved in that, so this wouldn't happen. Because under home rule charter, you have ability to have your tax come back to the community you live in. And if they would have been doing that for 10 years, you would probably have millions of dollars sitting in an account somewhere in a trust that you could pull from that in order to change the dynamics of this community. And the community like this is where your heart's at. It's not how much money you make and this kind of stuff going on, because this is really stressing families. I had a situation where I tried to get the asphalt put in. It was not approved. A little while later, I asked for crush because you're talking beautification, but you can't keep your properties maintained if you can't afford to. So as long as people are putting products in there that are maintaining their property, you don't have messes when people drive up and down the streets. But when people drive through a community, they're looking and getting the feel of the community. And if people cannot afford, I live in the older section, there's a lot of retired people, and as people have already said, there has been trailer pads on that street in the front for extra parking, like during the 4th of July and other things that happen. And to make an issue out of that right now, I just think is pretty irrelevant with everything else that we have to deal with right now. There's water issues, there's sewage issues, there's just so many things. And then the other question I had also is like, there was talk about incurring fees and taxes and fines. Well, if people don't pay those fines, is that going to give the city permission to put liens on properties? Because that's normal. And if you don't pay something, it can be court ordered. And then, it's putting the houses, and people are living out here planning their lives to retire out, to be part of a community. I work for transit, and people, we pick a lot of people up out here. They're modifying their homes, they're doing things that they can stay here. And by doing this kind of thing, they're not gonna have the funds to even do that. And I just think it's better to be a community than it is to be stirring the pot or whatever you want to call it for things that aren't really relevant at this point. Because there's just so many other things that need to be dealt with. So I thank you for your time. Take it away to go. So,
Thank you, Linda. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Renee Clayton. I've lived out in this area about 30 years. I'm just a little confused. Are you saying that concrete is beautiful? That's the only thing that's beautiful? Because I know plenty of people have spent $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on concrete, while the rest of the yard is crap. So where's the beauty? Maybe we should focus on, hey, your yard's got weeds and high, let's get the weeds down. Concrete's not beautiful. There's the old adage, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So are we saying that concrete's the only thing that's beautiful? Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. All right, is there any comment? Second call for public comment?
One more time.
I mean, so, whether, I don't know what decision will be made on this, but when you check your yes or no box, remember, all these people, your residents of Lincoln paying taxes, living out here, it's gonna cost a whole bunch of money. All there is to it's gonna cost millions of dollars
We have to come and have all of it removed. Have a contractor, because I would guarantee you there's not a contractor guy sitting here. That's a big project, so just think about a yes or no box. You're gonna cost your residents of Lincoln millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
There any more public comment?
Well, full transparency, I am an ETA resident out of Bismarck. And like Conley said, you know, we're having the same discussion regarding ETA. And what the city of Bismarck's gonna do with us ETA residents, around Bismarck. I stumbled upon this forced annexation here about a month ago, been following the conversation. And I think, you know, looking back, a lot of you weren't sitting on this council when the decision was made. To force somebody to be part of a city they don't want to be part of because you need the funds is wrong. That sets a bad precedence for economic growth. Do you think people are gonna want to develop around Lincoln, knowing that at any time you guys can reach out and annex them, possibly doubling their taxes? Think about that from an economic aspect. Bismarck hasn't done it. And they've done very well for themselves. The mayor has gone on record on several occasions in recent meetings saying that they will not force annex. Annexation has to be requested. Why do you want people in your community that don't want to be here? To say because they are businesses and that people from Lincoln patronize their businesses? That's wrong. Because I can tell you as a lifelong resident of Bismarck, I've been out to the tumbleweed more times than I can count. I came from Bismarck and I patronized businesses out in Lincoln. If you folks think that we have got so big between Bismarck, Lincoln and Mandan, that we are not still one community and there's a sense of community amongst people, you got your head in the sand. Because I don't care if you're Mandan, Bismarck, Lincoln, if you have a good business, I'm gonna patronize you. That's just how it goes. But to force people in because they have a business and you want their money, that's wrong. Plus, let's, you know, on the record, let's speak to, you guys don't provide services to them. You know, us and ET and Bismarck, we're in the same situation. We have our own septic, we have our own water. As ET resident, I do most of my own snow removal, me and the neighbors. Why are you taxing people if you're not giving them services? That's wrong, that's theft. So I would urge you guys, you know, everybody in this room's watching, but there's people in Bismarck and Mandan that are watching too. Do right by these people, you know, don't force them to be part of your community, invite them to be part of your community. Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is open for public comment. At first, we have a second. Now I'll call third call for public comment. Hearing and seeing none, we will carry on to.
Going back here.
Can't hear anything back there. Been a resident of Lincoln for 18 years. And start with the main question. Why do people move out to Lincoln? Affordable, you start your family, first home, it's all affordable for people. They come out here for that, they want to grow a family. Okay, now they have kids. They buy an old camper, they want money, or they want memories with their kids. Where do you park that camper? An old camper, they might
built with their kids, building families, or building memories. Where do they park it? Side of their house. You guys want us to pour concrete? We can't afford that. We barely afford that camper. We have that old camper, now we pour a nice pad. Is it gonna look any better having an old camper on a new pad? What did you do? Nothing. Well, if your neighbor doesn't like looking at your stuff, what's next? My house is green and it doesn't match the rest of the colors down the house or down the street. I can't have a greenhouse. I mean, where does it go? As long as it's kept up, I don't see a problem with it. Perfect drainage, affordable, it holds up to everything. Easy to fix. Concrete breaks, guess what? More thousands of dollars to fix it. Otherwise, you got a cracked pad that looks like crap. Gonna require maintenance down the road. So, I mean, there's kind of coincides with parking issues. If we park on the street, we're renting it for 48 hours. I can't park beside my garage, I can't park on the street. Where am I supposed to park? I have trailers, I have camper, I have vehicles. If it's all sitting on there nice and taken care of, what's the problem with it? Easier to buy a gallon of Roundup, take care of your weeds, keep it up nice. No, than it is for someone to pay $20,000 for a pad. But gotta think about what you're doing. Are you inviting more people out in Lincoln to live, or are you shutting it down? You want people out here. Start a family, start a house. So think about it. I know you guys work for us, not against us.
All right, we've had first, we've had second. This is third and final call. Public comment.
I'd like to say a few things. I, a couple of years ago, got with my neighbor, and we poured a crushed concrete pad. We also have a mailbox at the end of both of our driveways. We came to the city. We had somebody come over and actually approve our crushed concrete. We have edging around it where there's grass. It's rained numerous times. We have no issue with the crushed concrete, sliding into drainage, whatever. Both of our houses, it looks very nice because we had professional people come in and bring us the crushed concrete. We keep our camper there only through the summer because I'm courteous to my neighbor. When we blow snow, we don't want a giant snowdrift, so we store our camper through the winter somewhere else. He works on cars, so he has quite a few cars in that area, and it's never been an issue. I won't say where I live because that's nobody's business, but I know a few familiar faces. I've seen some of my neighbors outside. And I would like to just say that, when did it become anybody's business who has what outside their house? I personally have lived out here since 2008, and I drive down numerous streets, and I drive down the street. I drive home. For the most part, everybody's houses look nice. There's a lot of kids that live out here, so there's lots of things in people's yards. They clean it up for the most part. But when you spend time in your yard, most people spend time in their backyard. Am I not right? When my husband and I spend time outside, we sit in our backyard. We have a patio that I poured several years ago. I think I spent about $6,000 on my nice patio. It hasn't held up. There's cracks in it. It looks like garbage right now. There's holes in it. I don't see the purpose of making people pour concrete pads just to have them eventually. I mean, my driveway, we've had that repaired. I moved out here in 2008. I've had that repaired twice since 2008. My driveway looks like garbage and it's concrete. I've had 2 different concrete people come and repair my concrete. I see the purpose of beautification, and I understand everybody wants things to look nice, but having people pay extra money when things are hard enough for a lot of families, especially younger families starting out. A lot of people might be house broke because they're raising families, you know, I think as long as people take care of their things and do the best they can and things look nice, I think that should be good enough for most people. And if it's not, that's nobody's business. I think as long as it's not trashy and overgrown and a complete eyesore, that's fine. But I don't think it's up to anybody else to tell anybody what they can and can't have in their yard. I mean, I had 4 kids growing up and we had 5 cars in our yard. So yeah, you would drive by and be like, yikes, there's a lot of cars in that person's yard. We had 4 drivers. Yeah. I mean, we'd pull up sometimes and be like, geez, is there a party going on? No, we have 4 teenage drivers. I mean, sometimes I'd pull up in my own driveway and be like, where the hell am I gonna park? You know, and I mean, you gotta look at everybody's situation. You can't just throw everything out there and think that one rule goes for everybody. I think everybody needs to look at this differently, and there needs to be some understanding for the whole community, and everybody can get together and agree on something that works for everybody. And that's just what I'm saying, because I have a very beautiful crushed concrete pad that I really don't want it to go anywhere. So that's all I'm saying. So thank you.
Thank you.
For your time and for listening. Very good thing. Fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I think the residents have spoke.
So we had a first, second, third and final call for public comment. All right, this public comment period is over. We will move on.
Can I just say something, Mayor, quickly? I would just like to thank everyone who's come and spoken with us here tonight. It means a lot to us to hear what you have to say and what you want. We are here to represent you, and that means a lot to know your mind on what you want. So I just thank you for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Absolutely.
I have copies of all the emails that have been sent to me regarding this evening's topics. I would like to have these submitted as public comment under the meetings packets.
Right, and the auditor is keeping all of his email correspondence. Thank you. All right, we will go on to old business, agenda item 7. And this is the City of Lincoln project updates.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members, and residents. It's nice to see a full room at one of these meetings. Usually, I'm just talking to the people in the front. My name is Loretta Marshik. I am recently your city engineer. I'm excited to be here. The first item that I would like to update the city on is a wastewater update and rate study. Requested action is consideration for approval of the supplemental letter agreement for wastewater treatment facility design and bidding project. A little background on this project: the city of Lincoln is moving forward with design of its own wastewater treatment facility in lieu of a regionalization project with the city of Bismarck. The rate study is wrapping up, and to assist the city with making necessary adjustments based on need, the rate model is under review. SCH staff is expecting to deliver the study and tech memos in the coming week. The notice of intent for continuous discharge permit was submitted to Dallas Grossman and Sarah Waldronfeld at the DEQ on September 12th. We're awaiting response from DEQ. A follow-up discussion with permitting staff is planned before submitting short Form A and EPA Form 2A via Sears ND. Supplemental letter agreement was submitted for consideration for professional services related to the preliminary and final design and bidding of the City of Lincoln wastewater treatment facility design and bidding project. That project is looking at a lump sum of $2,047,371. It is a not to exceed amount, including expenses and equipment. The next steps would be to finalize the rate model with city staff, continue coordination with DEQ, and submit remaining permit forms once feedback is received. Then to begin preliminary design and project scheduling for the standalone facility, should this contract move forward. Any questions for me at this time?
All right, seeing none, thank you.
The next item to update you on is the pavement management program. That has no requested action, and background information for that. The City of Lincoln is implementing a pavement management program to assess roadway conditions and guide long-term maintenance and capital planning. SEH is leading the effort using a paver software to calculate pavement condition index ratings. To calculate the pavement condition index ratings based on field inspections and historical data. The current status is the GIS-based roadway segments have been created and approved. Field data is complete and modeling has been conducted using the city's provided budget to forecast roadway impacts. The final draft report is complete and we are looking forward to sharing that with city staff. It will include a narrative, graphics, and scenario-based recommendations. We plan as next steps to submit the completed draft report to the city for review and get approval for a 5-year preliminary engineering CIP plan for the roadways. This is not including maintenance, but more like mill and overlay and full depth reclamation of the roadways. That should be an easy task on our part, as with the help of Public Works Director Shoup, we went through a similar exercise to come up with roadways to submit for the flex funding. So we do have a number of projects already noted in that 5-year cycle. Additional next steps would be to present findings and budget scenarios to council, use report outcomes to inform future capital improvement planning and maintenance prioritization. I did get a glimpse of that, and it's pretty interesting with the graphics that have been included at how well it just points out the differences in the quality of roadways and the areas that need updates and help with being maintained. Any questions from you regarding that item? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
And now we will continue on to agenda item 8, the Lincoln Parks City Sponsorship. Is under Attorney Rodriguez.
So, this is kind of on hold from the standpoint of what the city needs to do next. So, sorry.
I'll just overview this. So the transportation, this is my understanding, the Transportation Alternatives Program has funds available that the Park District seeks to access. The Park District cannot enter into a direct contract with the Department of Transportation to obtain these funds. So the city has agreed to act as the sponsor for this project. The way this will be structured, if the funds are awarded to the Park District, is that the city will be expected to enter into some kind of agreement with the Department of Transportation. And then the city will enter into a side agreement with the Park District so that ultimately the expense and the long-term obligations will be the Park District. The problem is that there are not any updated regulatory materials that the DOT has. I don't have a copy of the agreement that the DOT might require the city to enter into when the actual application has been completed and submitted. So in visiting with Matt from SCH, I think the plan is that he's going to finish the application. The council has approved the city being a sponsor. I want to look at that before the mayor signs it. And then at the point where, if the grant is approved, then at that point, when we get that far, then we'll have to figure out what the city's obligations will be. And then I can help figure out what the agreement with the Park District should be. But right now, without having those details, I can't draft an appropriate agreement so that the city doesn't have liability to the Department of Transportation that isn't being absorbed by the Park District, right? So we want to put the city in the position where any expense or obligation that it incurs will be reimbursed by the Park District, and ultimately the Park District will have the long-term liability if there is any. So that's on hold for now, and more on that if the grant is awarded.
Okay, so question on that, Attorney Rogers, is the filing date or submission for the grant is October 15th. Is my understanding. So at this point, you're gonna look at the agreement. Everything looks okay, then I'm going to sign it, and then we're not going to review because we don't know if it's going to be awarded at this point. If it is, that's when we will look at the agreement and define the applications.
Right, so right now, I think what the city is signing off on is that it's willing to serve as a sponsor for the Park District. I need to confirm that when I see the application, but that's my expectation, that there's not, at this point, the city's not bound, not creating liability. It's really just agreeing that as part of a complete application, the city's gonna act as sponsor. At least that's my understanding, but let's look at it. I want to look at it when it's done, and I haven't had an opportunity to do that yet.
Thank you. Any questions? No. We will carry on to item number 9, the data center moratorium.
I don't have an update on that. I'm still working on business on that. I'll have something for the next week.
Okay. The next item, number 10, the city logo update. That have been talked about. I signed the letter so the EDC can go out and review vendors for the creation. The individual that made their submission was contacted, found out that they would use the license, or they bought a license through that a website, we'll just say. And so what EDC is going to do at this point is use that submission. The submitter has already said modifications to that to make it specific to the city of Lincoln are perfectly fine with her, acceptable. So they'll come up after they've decided on a vendor and work through the process of determining their final draft. They will bring it to council for approval from council. So they will be giving updates periodically throughout this time frame. So on with there. Any questions? No. So next We will go to item 13. Data centers and ordinances. Kim Pepper. Welcome back.
Thank you. Got a little handout here I want to give to each of you guys. I was invited to come down by one of the council members and some of the kids up here. What we've done as a township down in Lamar County, I represent Russell Township.
Sir, if we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I serve on the zoning board in Russell Township. And what's happened in our township and actually in our county is we've been literally as township government, county government inundated with corporations wanting to come in and do economic development, you name it. And so this past reorg in March, our zoning board and township supervisor board got together and we put together a plan how to deal with this. And I'll just read this to y'all, make it quick. Due to changing conditions in Russell Township and resident landowners' concerns over new renewable energy development in our township, the zoning committee was established to update Russell Township zoning ordinances. Concerns were expressed to Russell Township residents by Russell Township residents about high voltage power lines, wind farms, solar farms, battery farms, carbon pipelines, and data centers. AI carbon capture facility or air carbon capture facilities and nuclear and or industrial waste disposal sites. Following list of suggestions is only a draft of items drawn from other North Dakota townships and counties and other states. Number one, identify new renewable energy development. Resident landowners do not want to have in close proximity of their dwellings. And this will also, and that will also affect their property values. Write ordinances that will require all energy and developers to appear before the township board and present their business plans to the board before they start acquiring easements from the landowners. This is a big issue in North Dakota. And our legislature hasn't done anything to protect landowners. They've actually paved the way, carts before the horse. None of the landowners know anything about this until they get a visit from a land agent. The land agent should be required to come before local governments and present their case, which I state here, or which is stated, which we are going to do in our township. We're going to require them come before the township board and present their plan. Number 3 here, require all energy developers to post bond in inadequate amounts to be determined by the township board for unforeseen damages to roads, culverts, and bridges. And number 4, establish setbacks. Data centers. The one in Allendale, I live 30 miles from it. It's affecting everybody down in that area. They're hauling gravel into that thing from 100 miles away. Our roads are going to be destroyed. Somebody, the North Dakota taxpayer, is going to have to pay for this. They're trying to make residents of the Allendale School District pay for the TIF for their housing. They don't want it. Applied Digital doesn't want to pay for their housing. They want the taxpayers to pay for it. That's what's happening down there. Y'all be careful what you wish for. The data centers, 95% of them, this is according to real reliable Wall Street Journal articles, 95% of them haven't shown a profit to their investors yet.
This is coming. Protect yourself. Do what you need to do. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. One of the things that I would like, just to mention for everybody that these cities, one of the breakout sessions at this last conference had a couple of presenters that talked about AI data centers and whatnot. And I had asked Mr. Flaherty to join us tonight. He was not able to, but he will be providing more information at our next meeting on October 3rd. So more information on that. So next on the agenda is item 14 and 17, beautification. And at this point, Attorney Rottenby. And only sort of to hear, would you be willing to?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I talked to the mayor a little bit before the meeting, just to try to put some structure into what all of you were talking about, right? And trying to figure out how the city moves forward. So one of the things that I heard was voting no. There are no changes to the zoning or to any of the ordinances that are present right now in front of the council. So there's nothing right now for the council to vote on. So what you have in Lincoln is you have your ordinances, which contain things that a lot of you don't like. There are ordinances that govern the landscaping. There's ordinances that cover driveways, setbacks, all of that as part of your comprehensive zoning program. I don't know how long they have been in effect. Some of them for longer than others. One of the issues that at least I've noticed, I've been doing your legal work for maybe about 2 years now, year and a half. One of the things that I've noticed is that there has been over time inconsistency in enforcement and misunderstanding, I think, with your Board of Adjustments as to variances. So since I've been your city attorney, one of the things that I've encouraged the Board of Adjustments not to do is to issue what the Board of Adjustments called in the past a variance, which would allow a homeowner to do something that is against your code. Because that's not really what variances, that's not how the variances are supposed to work. And so what that has resulted in over time is what some of you have noticed and have complained about, which is my neighbor has a certain setup that is against the code, and I asked if I could do it, and I was told no. Right? So that is not the fault of anybody here, right? That's just part of, I think one of the gentlemen talked about growing pains. Well, that is the growing pains from being a small municipality where it's very lax to growing and now trying to put some structure in some uniformity in place. And again, I'm not making not a legal call whether or not you have crushed gravel or you have I don't care about that, right? That's not my concern. My concern is I would like the city to have a uniform application of its laws, right? So that it's not, well, this person gets to do something and this person gets a letter saying that you're in violation, or this person went to this Board of Adjustment and got some kind of permission to violate the ordinance, and now the Board of Adjustments changed and somebody else can't do that. So in trying to analyze how you move forward, I think that the focus should be on what does the code say and what do you want it to say? And it has to be specific. Whether, and some of this is, I think, practical, right? I was listening carefully, and some of you said, well, I want to be left alone. We should be left alone in our property, and we should only focus on the ones that are bad, right? Because there's a point where if your neighbor is not, if you're trying to sell your house
and your neighbor has 4 cars on blocks in their driveway or in their yard, you're not gonna be happy, right? You're gonna be like, how do I sell my house? I've got a neighbor. So, you know, some standard is required. And again, this isn't mine, that's for them to decide what that is. The other question I think is an enforcement question, and as far as I know, because my office does the prosecution for the city, I don't think any enforcement actions have actually been started against anybody. I think that the city has a policy of if somebody complains about your yard being out of compliance, then I think that there's some letters that have gone out, and I guess the auditor can speak to that. But as far as I know, the city has not initiated, at least that we've been involved in as the city attorney. I think some people might recently received a flyer of some kind. Am I correct about that? That was not done by the city. That wasn't done by the auditor or by the city. That was done by folks who wanted to get people here to talk about this issue again, which is, I don't have an opinion about that. So what I would suggest on going, and I want to go back one more step. So this item of beautification has been on my radar as the city attorney for the whole time that I've been the city attorney, because a lot of these, what we're calling beautification provisions, they all fit together within your code. So if you change something over here, you have to be careful to also change something over here, because the code is somewhat comprehensive from a zoning standpoint. And some of these discussions have been brought up for exactly the reasons that all of you are here, which is somebody says, well, my neighbor was given permission to do it this way, and then when I asked to do it, I was told I couldn't. And so part of what the council has been trying to work their way through is, well, what should the standard be? And how do we make the code work so that we get to that standard? And certainly there are lots of vehicles that we can use to try to get there. One of the gentlemen talked about what he said was the intent, which was we'll make things forward looking so that, you know, you see this in legislation for all new construction after November 1st, 2025, this is the standard, right? There are ways of doing that on a going forward basis. But I know one of the things that came up within the city that was frustrating was the director of public works told a resident, you can't, what you're doing is against the code. And the resident said, well, everybody else is doing it that way. What are you going to do to me? Right. And so like this becomes more complicated from a standpoint of legally, the city really shouldn't be in a position where it's picking and choosing who, you know, this time we enforce it, this time we don't, right? That inconsistency creates difficulties. So my only thing from a kind of path forward from a legal standpoint is, I don't think that we should handle this on the enforcement end, which is to say, we have these ordinances, they make things against the city code. We're just going to look the other way and we're going to keep looking the other way. I don't think that's a viable for the growth of the city. I don't recommend that. What I recommend is if something in the code, like a lot of my clients aren't cities. So if there's something in the law that we don't like, we can't just change it. But the beautiful thing about working for a city is that if there's something in the code that doesn't work, it's a relatively easy matter to change that so that it does work. And so what I would encourage all of you to do is let's identify the things in the code that you don't like, and then we can kind of step by step figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But I don't recommend that you don't have any standards, right? I don't know that anybody wants to, if you think your property values and the value of what you got is in trouble now with this, wait until there are no standards and you go to sell, right? I mean, the idea is you want standards at work and that they're uniformly applied so that when you're ready to sell, or if you have to sell, you've retained your value because every home in the community are all meeting that minimum standard of what is allowed. So that would be my approach, is to identify what in the code is not working, and then how do we make it work and how do we get everybody to a standard going forward? So that we eliminated some of these inconsistencies that have occurred over time.
All right, and if I can just make one comment, because I've heard many times throughout public comment about being forced to dig up your yards and lay concrete over rock and things like that. That has never been a discussion at this table. So whomever told you that or put out there was misinforming you.
Okay.
So not a concern.
Thank you for clearing that up. Thank you. Because that's, of course, the rumor mills, the gossiping, the Facebooking, everything. That was my main concern. And I'm sorry I'm speaking out, but you know how things go. And that was my main concern because.
And that's the thing with Facebook. We tend to look at that as what's being.
That's why it's important that everybody shows up in person and speaks instead of using social media. So.
And I appreciate that.
Thank you for clarifying that as well. Sorry.
But didn't, I believe I watched the video last week. Did you not say that anything that has rock in the boulevard needs to come out?
I did not. I said any violations that we have on the table need to be revisited and sent out because as a city, we still need to be conducting business like we should have been. Why are there 300 and some violations even at the office? Why are they sitting there?
And to clarify, because I had seen that also in the disclosure was that it was pieced. Were clips of here, clips of there, and people can put whatever they want, clip it together to relay whatever discussion they want out there. So we just need to make sure that if you have questions, I have received many phone calls, many emails, as well as the city staff. And I've tried to contact everybody directly and answer the phone call. To the council meetings, ask your questions, because once you ask those questions, we can relate to you while not relying on anonymous posts on Facebook, that this is what the discussion is, and this is where we're going. And then and I agree with Attorney Rockeby, if there's something in the ordinances that you do not think should be, or that we could take a look at, bring it to council. And we are absolutely open. I can speak for everybody at the table and sure that if you have a question or concern, talk to us. Because like our engineer stated, we don't have this during our meetings. We typically have speakers that have been asked to come or provide reports. So like Councilwoman Arcadia said, we appreciate all of the comments and everybody stepping out.
We actually need you to come and tell us what you want.
I mean,
Podium, please.
I would love to come to these meetings, but I teach martial arts classes at your park building the same time this is going on. And I had to hand my class off over to another teacher to be able to come here. So it's not possible to always be at these meetings, so how can we know what's going on if we aren't able to make it?
One of the things that I have done over this last year is initiate a city council newsletter that gets put out on a quarterly basis.
How does he access that?
It is actually mailed out within the mailers or utility billings, and I understand I would like that to become a monthly newsletter, but at this point,
yeah,
you know,
well, it is
Facebook, you can go online because all of the meetings are recorded. The video is available. So, you know, you don't have to be here at this meeting because on the public comment section, you can make public comment to this meeting as well as the recent, one of the recent agenda items. So, and just from me to you, I try not to limit anybody coming up to the podium and speaking. So
If I can
Yeah. If there are questions or comments that need to be made, we'll do that, but absolutely. It is available online
I
too.
mean, I read the newsletters, but they're very short and don't really say a lot.
Well, and I'm hoping that there will be more to come. Yeah, so,
Thank you.
thank you. All right.
If I'm regarding this topic. First, I want to start by apologizing. At the last meeting, I voted in favor of sending out the citations and moving forward with fines for violations to the ordinances. I did not do my due diligence on this. The Monday after that meeting, my wife and I took a drive around town and we hit up maybe a quarter of town homes. I have a pen for my phone where I can use it to draw on the screen. And I would do tick marks every time we drove by a property that had a violation to these beautification ordinances. Within the first 3 or 4 streets, I have over 100 tick marks. It didn't occur to me, and my wife, God bless her, she's pretty much always right, informed me of how large of a burden enforcing some of these ordinances are on the homeowners. A lot of this has been in place before any of these ordinances were changed to require that concrete be in or that no rock be in boulevards. A lot of this is just very decorative stuff that's not being parked on, not being drug out onto the streets. And so I wanted to apologize that I did not do more due diligence on this, and I feel I was wrong to vote in favor of proceeding. Some people do know, but it was my wife that went around putting these notices on people's doors. And if you guys want copies of these to see exactly what they said, I have several of them here. She did not do that as a representative of the city by any means. I had no involvement in it. As a resident, she saw something that she thought was wrong and she wanted to make people know.
So you've got it there, read it.
You want me to read what it's on?
What does it say?
It says, you're in violation. The city council wants to enforce all boulevard rock and rock parking pads be removed from front yards, only allowing concrete pads. Fines are being enforced. Let your voice be heard. City council meeting 6 p.m. October 9th, 74 Santee Road. Can't make it, and you can scan this QR code to pull up email addresses for the council members here at the office.
Can I ask a question, Councilman Bjornstad?
Yes.
Did that not go out to every single citizen of the town to inform them of all of this going on, or was it just a select few?
They handed out ones that they were able to get to in time for the meeting.
Because there was none on the new development whatsoever in that area.
They started on parts of the northwest and started working kind of south from there. I will say I am proud of what she did. I think it was very good that she was trying to inform other residents of what was going on. I know there was some question about the laws of solicitation in the city, and the solicitation law only actually applies to people that are selling goods or subscriptions. It is not in regards to people informing others. Moving beyond that, I spent probably way more time than anybody should digging into these ordinances. The first one I would like to address, I feel will be very quick. It's ordinance 9.3.13, landscape is free. That is the ordinance that has been getting used to say that people cannot park on grass beside their garage or house. In section 3, it states, no required landscape area shall be used for parking of vehicles or for the storage or display of materials, supplies, or merchandise. What we failed to do was look above that at section 2, where it said applicability. It says that this is for the construction of any principal commercial, industrial, institutional, or multifamily buildings with 3 or more units. Just for clarification, or an example of what this means. A business that I'm involved in, about 7, 8 years ago, we put up a new building. In that process, the city required us to have a certain amount of green space and landscape to offset what was now being taken out of the building and parklands. This is in reference to something like that where that landscape area cannot be used. This doesn't actually say anything about single family residential areas. So as far as I'm aware, there actually is no ordinance or Lincoln stating that people cannot park on grass. Moving on to the next part would be in regards to requiring concrete to be for a camper path or a parking path. In that ordinance, let me see, find it here. I believe that is ordinance 8-2. It does not actually specify anything about building material and furnishings. The only thing that is mentioned regarding the building of it is that 3/4 inch by 6 inch expansion joists should be along between the camper van. It doesn't actually state that concrete has to be used, and it doesn't state that rock cannot. So I find it hard to believe that we can tell our residents that they would be required to have a concrete parking pad if they want to construct a pad. One more thing, as far as grandfather. The particular ordinance for requiring that there be no rock within boulevard does not specifically state in it that any properties are grandfathered. What I did find is that ordinance 9309 under the zoning ordinances speaks of non-conforming lots, structures, uses, and characteristics. It states the intent within the districts established by this title or amendments that may later be adopted. There exist items which were lawful before this title was passed or amended, but which would be prohibited, regulated, or restricted under the terms of this title or future amendment. It is the intent of this title to permit these nonconformities to continue until they are removed, but not to encourage their survival. I know it doesn't say specifically in the no rock boulevard ordinance that things grandfathered, but to me, this acts as a umbrella coverage over any ordinance changes that affect how any of the zones in this chapter are used. So I don't see how the city can then not grandfather the properties that had rock in their boulevards prior to the ordinance.
Attorney Rodney, I think at one point at the discussion was ordinances or laws, no grandfathering, but you did say, and correct me if I'm wrong, however, you can put in ordinance that as of this day, properties will.
Yeah, I think, Madam Mayor, and I have not, looked at the code section, so I can't comment on the interpretation. You know, part of the growing pains of the city of Lincoln is that, your ordinances, you know, if you ask me what should you do, I would say blow them up and start over, right? But we really can't. Your zoning ordinances and some of these other ordinances aren't, they're probably adequate at the time that they were adopted, but they probably need to be revised significantly to bring Lincoln into a more modern setting. And in some instances, they are ambiguous in that one section of code, you can get one kind of interpretation, but then there's another section of code and you've got to read them together. So it can become complicated. And what I would say is rather than, again, this is a policy question for the council, but to the extent that the council agrees, the better way of doing this is to be explicit. So, you know, rather than say this section of code doesn't require concrete, let's just put it in the code, right? If that's the will of the people and if that's the will of the council. If the council can't come to some agreement on what to do, then the lawyers are gonna have to figure out what your code means on a going forward basis. But to the extent that the council can agree from here going forward, this is what we want the rule to be, that is a much more preferable way, because it eliminates the ambiguity and it makes it clear for everybody to absolutely understand. And then it stays in place as the council changes, right? This is part of the problem that you've had out here, is that different councils have looked at these rules differently over time. And what you want is very, very clear rules so that there isn't any ambiguity. And as the council changes, the personnel changes and the city workers change, everybody always, I've heard several people say, I went to the city and I asked them what I was supposed to do and they told me. Well, I want the code to be so clear that you can look it up in the code and you know what you're supposed to do. And so that it's not a question of what some city worker tells you, because you can read the code for yourself and know exactly what it is that is allowed or not allowed, right? And so that would be what my recommendation would be for the city, is that to the extent these things aren't working, let's fix them and make them very, very explicit. And now, if the council can't agree, then I guess we're gonna have to work our way through the minutia of how we read all of these sections together to figure out what is required or not required. But I'd prefer that we just fix it, right? To change the code, if it's not a zoning ordinance, which would require a public hearing and publication, it's not a zoning change, you need 2 readings, so you can literally do it in a month, right? It's not, these are not overly complicated, and thankfully, Bismarck, Fargo, Mandan, right? A lot of the other cities have already, they started off with a code that was very much like yours.
It did.
And
Can you use Derek's?
And
Sorry.
they've made, I'm gonna say that a lot of the cities started off with codes that were very similar to what yours is, but they've made changes to theirs over time to make it a little more sophisticated. So like when we work on code, we don't start from scratch. We go to Bismarck, Mandan, Fargo, and we steal everything we can from them. So like these problems are not insurmountable. They can be easily fixed. Just y'all have to get on the same page as to what you want.
Thank you, Monty.
Thank you.
So just to clear things up, just so we're kind of all on the same page, so it does say in the code that we have now that we, like what you had just read, that crushed concrete, rock and everything is acceptable. And you're on the beautification board and you guys were the ones that sent out the yellow tags on some properties, because I know other people did not get those.
The tags were not part of any beautification board.
That was just something you guys chose to do as a resident.
Yeah.
Just a simple resident chose to hand those out on their own. Okay, because I know some people got some and some didn't, and a lot of people that got them have concrete crushed things and things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that's clear. So thank you for that.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Yes, absolutely.
I guess at this point, I am at the opinion that despite us voting at the previous council meeting to move forward with issuing citations on ordinances, I feel that we should do at least a 90-day moratorium on issuing citations on this until we can work on sorting out exactly what needs to stay in these ordinances, what we feel is the proper interpretation of them, and how we move forward.
I do question, so are you suggesting weed control and grass also, or are you talking about?
I am referring to the 3 main ones that I guess I have touched base on regarding parking on grass, material for parking pads, and rock in the floor. So I would make that as easy.
Okay, we have, if you could identify that.
I would like to make a motion on having a 90-day moratorium on any citations or fines being issued regarding ordinances on parking on grass, material for parking pads, and rocks in the boardwalk.
Okay, we have first from Councilman Bjornstad. Is there a second?
Do we need to open for discussion or not?
After the second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilwoman Artavia. Any discussion?
Definitely discussion. I, as a council member, and on beautification, clarified, did not send that out. I think all of the 300 and some or 200 and some, whatever the number is of violations that the city has should be looked at so that we can get a clear look on what is really in violated and what was taken care of, what is still in violation, and what is not in violation. Does that make sense? So I think we should literally scrap all of it and no fines need to be taken because we need to go through the 300 and see, do we really have 300 violations? Or do we have 2 or 5 or 10? And go from there. I really think we need to definitely not send out fines because we need to look at those violations. If they've been sitting in our office this summer, most of those violations are probably already taken care of. So why even send anything out? So that's my discussion on that.
I just agree that we shouldn't be sending out fees. Or we shouldn't be requiring people to, pay fees, that this needs a deeper look. And that we need to halt action at this time.
And I would like to say that the beautification discussion did start with me as far as decorative rock within the easement. So this has snowballed from that. I can't apologize for that because I was reached out to by a resident who received a violation notice because he had hired somebody to come in and landscape his yard. I brought it to council earlier this summer to see if we could look at ordinances to see, is this necessary? There's nothing in the easement right away. Well, the issue is the rocks getting into the city streets. So could we look at the size of rocks that were going to be allowed versus absolutely none? The wind isn't going to pick them up. The water isn't going to float them away. The rest of this was snowballed after the fact. So I can't apologize for trying to help one of the residents. I do apologize that there was so much miscommunication out there for everybody. I am 100% in agreement. We need to take a look at each of these. Now, that being said, if your lawn isn't mowed, you've got weeds growing up, that's a separate violation. Nobody at this table had said anything about crushed asphalt. Actually, that was mentioned to be an alternative to concrete. So those hard services are necessary. So that being said, I personally think council has a good plan as far as taking a look at each of these individually. But it is a council decision. Auditor Wilson, do you have any?
May I speak? So I'm gonna say that we have been moving forward with the lawn item, with the grass, the extra weeds, the weeds in the rocks. A couple, 3 probably went out today for like 4 cars on the side of the house. They're not licensed, which they're supposed to be licensed and upkept. So there was about 10 citations or not citations, I'm sorry. The process is we get the complaint, we follow through with that complaint, they get a letter, they get 30 days. We send out, some of the ones that went out today are second letters, because they did not comply. And then they get so many more days, and if it's not done in those days, that is when they could be fined. So we have moved forward with continuing with the grass, all of those kinds of things.
But you haven't sent anything for crushed asphalt or,
We have a couple in there that they're parked on the side of the house on the grass. Because after the last council, we were told to move forward.
thank you. So there is a motion discuss, and is there any discussions?
Can you please repeat the motion on the floor?
My motion is to enact a 90-day moratorium on any citations or fines regarding parking on the grass. Material for not, I say, non-concrete use for parking that material and for rocks in the wall.
Under current ordinance 9-03-10, it does state all off-street parking spaces required shall have an all-weather-proof surface. I'd be not in favor in a moratorium to not have our current ordinances be enforced by William D. Engine ordinance to prevent the fines from being enforced while we sort of our current ordinances. So I have it match the city's deal.
Could you repeat which ordinance refers to?
9-03-10.
Is that a proposed amendment? To that?
Yes. Was to amend the ordinance.
I can do that. I think you have to vote on the one.
Yeah.
And, but just for record, you are stating you would like it amended to still have the violation. Because it is against ordinance, not to incur a fee until reworking and revisiting some.
Just for clarification, this does not state that these things are not a violation, just that we are not going to be issuing a citation at this time until clarify here that they remain or change violations.
Their main document that doesn't mean to pursue the fines, just so pause with the documentation.
Correct.
The ordinances.
It's just a moratorium on issuing citations or fines until we can clarify or include some.
And I like the 90-day conversation or moratorium and time frame. Because this has been discussion since early this summer and there's been no action. So I like that decision to discussions review.
May I speak, Mayor? So if I'm understanding this, and I let the two gals know that do these. At this time, I want complete clarification. For at this time, what is being proposed, we still send out the letters. But without
the verbiage for fee.
Is that what I'm understanding?
I guess I wouldn't send out a letter regarding this.
No, I would think no new letters, existing letters.
Basically, we're disregarding everything at this time for 90 days.
Just putting it on pause.
Not everything.
Not the law, not the.
Yeah, just these three.
I want clear clarification for that.
Understand.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, council. We have a first and a second. We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? And if we could get a roll call, please.
Bjornstam,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Bartavia,
Yes.
and Shoemaker.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Anything else under your list? All right, we will continue on with new business. Agenda item 15, Marie Mills, Mr. Woodworth and Tracy Seaman, exclusion of territory. Thank you. You requested to be on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the city council. My name is William Woodworth, and I'm an attorney representing Marine Mills at Tracy Z, who are landowners within the territory that are included in the petitions that were submitted to the city council. So it's our understanding this is kind of more of a introduction of the request by these landowners to try to undo part of the annexation that had occurred last year. So essentially, these were the people that never agreed to come. Rather, they had opposed to that time, but because they were included in the territory that was included, once that was kind of accomplished, they became part of the city, and essentially they're trying to utilize state code provisions to have that decision essentially reconsidered, at least with regards to their territory or their parcels. And so obviously, I had some conversations earlier today with your attorney about obviously there's still some technical things that we would have to do before a final vote could occur on this. So there are some notice requirements both in the paper and to affected residents to make sure that they're fully advised of what's happening. Also, I think we need to do some verification on making sure that some of the other requirements in the code are met, that we essentially agree on what those permissions require. But essentially, I think a lot of the conversations and public comment really kind of touched on kind of the basis of why this request was being made is these are individuals that didn't necessarily want to become part of the city. Mostly because again, they want to be able to control what happens on their own land. They had purchased property at the time that it was not part of the city. And so I would prefer my clients to talk a little bit more about those details. But again, so this ultimately is what those petitions are requesting. And so if there's any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to do so. Otherwise, I would really like to answer kind of more of the details as to why those questions.
Madam Mayor, I guess maybe I could overview where we're at. I don't think we're in a position tonight to hear arguments in favor of the petition. I mean, there's a statutory process that needs to be followed, and I was a little late getting it, but all of you would have received a copy of my memo outlining what the statutory process is. So under section 4051.2 of the North Dakota Century Code of 4051.204, it sets forth a process where a landowner who has been annexed in or is part of a municipality or a group of landowners can by petition ask that their territory be excluded. And it's a discretionary matter that's within the council's discretion, which means you can approve the petition and exclude the territory, or you can choose not to. But like most things, there are some complications in what the statute says. So the statute says that to be eligible to be excluded, lands have not been platted under either sections 4050.101 through 4051.17 or section 570239. So I think the first issue and I talked to William about this earlier today, the first issue is whether or not these properties have been platted. My guess is they have been platted, and if they've been platted, they're not eligible to be de-annexed unless their plats are vacated or unless portions of the plats are vacated. And technically that requirement has to be done before the petition can come forward. But as we discussed, I don't want them to go through that process and the expense of that process if the council is not inclined maybe to move forward with the de-annexation. So that we have to do due diligence on that. Because of the way the statute's written, it's not even an option if the plats include public rights of way and other easements for the public, things of that nature. And so we're going to have to work probably with the city engineer to get a copy of the plats and look at what they say and what's dedicated to the public and absent, and they're gonna put a tree general opinion on this, absent basically the processes that the landowners would have to go to have those plats vacated before they can submit their petition. And then the other issue is that the annexation is not possible where there are municipal improvements which have been made or constructed on the land or adjacent to. And so we're gonna have to work with city engineer and the director of public works to figure out whether or not the city has placed any kind of improvements as those are defined by statute. And so those are the two prerequisite requirements that really need to be met before the matter, even the discretion can go forward. Assuming we get through all of that, then the statute sets out what the procedure is, and the petitioners are responsible for publishing in the newspaper that they're going to present this petition. So we're going to have to work with them to set the time, kind of like our public hearing requirements, and that has not been done. So we're not in a position tonight to take testimony or public argument for or against the annexation. That we have to publish that. And then the city auditor is going to have to provide certified mail notice to any property owner that might be affected who has not signed the petition. Now I'm visiting, it looks like all of the affected property owners have signed the petition, but again, I'm gonna have to work with the city engineer and the auditor to figure out who the owners are of the property and then cross-reference that with the petition. And then the city also has to give certified notice to any other governmental entity that is affected, which I assume would be the county and also township. So we're gonna have to, like, we're not gonna do this week, and we're not going to do it at the next meeting, but maybe sometime in November, we'll coordinate all of this, because they've got to do publication, we've got to do certified mail, we've got to verify these plats. And so there's some procedural things that we need to jump through that we're not prepared to do tonight. So I'm not in favor of, I mean, if the landowners want to speak and the council wants to speak, then that's fine, but really the case to be made for why the council should vote in favor of the petition needs to be done after we properly noticed the petition.
Can I ask, Attorney Rockenby, because Mr. Berger mentioned or indicated that they were part of the annexation last year. One of the properties was back in 2018. And that was a request of the property owner.
Previous property owner.
Previous
Property owner was never charged any of the sanitation fees, nothing, and I have proof of that right here.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to sort that out when, and it doesn't matter when the property was annexed or how it was annexed, if it was.
Taxes.
If the, just be for a second, if the owner asked for it, didn't ask for it, doesn't matter. None of that really matter. I mean, it might matter to how the council exercises its discretion, but it doesn't matter as to whether it's a valid petition. So you could ask to be annexed, it could be a voluntary annexation, and then a year later, you could decide it was a mistake if you want to undo it, and if you can meet the requirements and the council supports your petition, that remedy is available to you. So I would really like the council to, I mean, the part of this that I think is complicated is the plat requirement. And meeting that requirement, the council probably should have discussions with the petitioners and maybe give them some indication of how the council is intending before they're required to meet that requirement. I hate for the council to say they're not going to consider your petition until you met the plat requirement, and then have the landowners do a bunch of work and go through a bunch of expense, and then have the whole petition come and the council say, well, we're not inclined to grant your petition, in which case we've created a bunch of extra work and legal expense that I don't think we should do. So we're gonna have to work together to kind of finesse that a little bit.
Yeah, that verbiage, attorney and council, this section, however, applies only to lands that have not been platted under either sections. Does that mean existing properties, right? Or what really does that mean? Because I'm confused with that.
That's a good question. The statute was written a certain way and then they changed it, and they didn't change it to fix all of the things they changed. So, my interpretation is it's talking about the platting of, public rights of way, streets and alleys and drainage easements and things of that nature is how I would interpret that section. But we start out by what does the plat say?
We have a technical expert in our midst.
Hello, Casey.
Hello, Casey Ingram, Senior Assistant County Engineer. So part of the plat question, plats were gotten in 2007 for Lincoln Storage is essentially in some of the areas around there. The other plat on the north side is also done. In 2007, 65th Street was part of the dedicated right of way. The roads that are in there, Paintball Way, Lincoln Road is another one. Those were also included. Improvements that have been done since then, such as the bike path that just finished, that's on the west side of the road, so that wouldn't actually be on the east side that was dedicated, but water main, South Central Rural Water, those different portions, those are all part of what could be called public improvements. So say there's a de-annexation that happens, the roadway would, it'd be like Township Road, go back to the Alpha Creek Township, 66 would be county still. But if you want to vacate the plat, I think that's where the county would, at least as the highway department, we would say we do not want those roadways vacated. Because once they go away, trying to get them back is extremely difficult and it's very expensive generally to try to do that. Granted, there's a whole lot of law that goes into this, a whole lot of parts. It's, from my understanding, the de-annexation, if it's platted, you can de-annex a platted piece of land if it's under 10 years. If it's been more than 10 years, you can't, but that I know that's one interpretation. There's a reason there's multiple lawyers and judges make decisions between lawyers on that. I don't disagree, there's other interpretations, but that is a interpretation from times we've gone through that type of stuff before on there. And there's a lot of different parts of the code that come in and it's a little more complicated in there, but that's what we would look at least as not wanting plats vacated, at least from the highway department perspective. Any questions?
So Casey would ultimately just revert back to what it was before, the county taking care of the things, right, basically?
Well, if the plat is vacated, it would go back to whoever owns the land, that's not the county. Because the dedicated right of way would go away, the dedicated roads would then go back to the adjacent landowner, that's how that's written in law.
Right.
So whoever owns land goes back, then now we'd have to go back and try and get that right of way from them. And 100-foot right of way amongst multiple along a corridor like that. When we're looking at the 66 railroad overpass project, that was undeveloped land. That was not cheap down there. It was far in excess, but yeah.
And the de-annexation, or the vacation of the plat also would require your approval, right? So that, you know, the landowner doesn't control either portion, either and again, I think the statute is right now is poorly written, but if you look at the statute, when it talks about platting in this section of the Century Code, it's listing every section of the Century Code that has anything to do with a plat. And you know, the legislature probably needs to fix that, but we can't ignore that requirement. And so, you know, I think that in this situation, that might be determinative. I mean, that might be the end of it. That they can't meet that plat requirement, which is a requirement of the statute. But we need to sort our way through that. I called him today so that we could start the conversation about that. We need to do our due diligence. He's going to do his due diligence, and yeah, two lawyers, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's some way of doing that. But ultimately, I don't want to get lost in all this procedure if there's no will on the count, because it's a totally matter of discretion. It's 100% your decision on whether or not you want to grant the petition. And so, you know, we just need to keep lines of communication open so that we don't unduly burden the petitioners and legal expense if the answer is going to be no.
Appreciate that. And move on to the
Questions for?
Thank you, Casey. I personally, council and mayor do not want to waste time, that's for sure. They've already spent enough time and efforts of putting all of this together. When maybe they necessarily shouldn't have had to. So I definitely want to continue on this path for sure. And see what we can do for them.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Woodworth. My name is Marie Mills. Some of this might be repetition to some of you, but for other people that are really here and joining because of all the beautification stuff. I'm the petitioner representing the south parcels to be excluded from Lincoln. Our family has been here since 2012. We paid $2,920 on September 10th, 2012 to be South Central Water members. In which we signed a contract with to be members. We have private septic, private sanitation, and purchased our own equipment in 2021 to move the snow on our properties, which we are still paying for roughly $800 a month for equipment plus insurance, and that's whether there's snow or not. You pay for that all year long. We have not been offered any services from Lincoln since the forced annexation, nor have we declined any services from Lincoln. The forced annexation landowners are both families. We are businesses. The 88 acres of landowners represent the definition of both locally owned and family owned businesses, along with a few longtime residents that came to their properties with the intention of being rural and self-sufficient. The beauty in the struggle that I chose to take on last August, leading to today, is I got to meet and got to know the people behind the parcels of land. I'll introduce you to a few. We have Bailey and Company, who owns Integrity Landscapes. Alicia and Brandon will see a 51% tax increase after the forced annexation. MySpace Storage offers short and long-term storage. Troy's tax increase will be 75.65%. My son and I had the pleasure of meeting Shane with Flail and Mechanical. Renee and John with Craven Enterprises offer storage, and they can expect a 52% tax increase. Just for Pets, which you'll hear from next, she offers pet boarding. She's been annexed in for many years and has received 0 services in that time frame. Scala Properties offers Scala diesel repair. Romagnan offers storage along with Wolf Storage. The Berger Brothers have Dakota 5 oil field services. Quant Properties offers self-storage, and he is a veteran-owned business. Dennis's tax increase will be 65%. And then there's Elk Industries with property management and industrial truck shops, who rent many shops to many trucking companies that are dear friends of ours, personally and business. Lorraine spoke last fall with strong convictions against the forced annexation and asked me to read this tonight on her behalf. Do you mind if I do that? I'm Lorraine Richard, representing Elk Properties and Elk Industries. I am out of state and unable to attend tonight's meeting. Please know that I am still in support of the de-annexation, as this represents individuals, residents, and businesses that had no say in these decisions. Your board needs to reconsider this forced annexation decision. Thank you. Then we have Bunker Hill Properties with industrial lots. Kevin's tax increase will be 58%. We have Anytime Investments, home to Lincoln Storage. Lincoln Storage is president, not the city. I want to clarify that. Jason's tax increase will be 45% and 50% on his 2 parcels. And unfortunately, when financial burden is put on businesses, it is passed on to customers, many of you, which causes more burden, more families, which seems to have been tonight's topic. Many of the people that rent storage from these businesses are Lincoln residents, and this causes a domino effect. Last but not least, we have longtime residents, which I think there was confusion that this was all businesses. George Mills, he's been at his property almost 40 years. He's obviously elderly and he will expect a 53% tax increase. Darwin DeWald has been on his property over 12 years. He will have a 43% tax increase, and our family can expect a 92% tax increase. Our family's 3 parcels consist of 6 acres, and we are out here because of my in-laws. My late mother-in-law offered us a piece of land to build our home and to raise our family so she can have her grandkids close by. She's no longer with us, but those kids are now 20 and 23 years old, and I want nothing more than to be able to keep our land in the family. This wasn't in the plan when this was disrupted last August. We are a real property, not a city lot. My in-laws' 40 acres of land is the reason that there is the housing development behind us called Wheatland Hills 2, in which many of you might reside. Sorry. Prior to August 2024, we were part of Apple Creek Township for almost 13 years. We paid our taxes every year, which were always consistently fair. Things were peaceful, and we were part of a community, a rural community close to the city, in which most residents own their homes. Lincoln grew around us. There are places all over Bismarck where the city grew around unannexed property. Centennial Trailer Park is one example. Last August, I feel that there was an agenda that was rushed to get the results few wanted, no matter whom and how many it hurt. Things may have appeared to be done correctly on paper, but I'm more concerned if was this morally done correctly. Now that I'm hearing what I'm hearing, I'm not going to get disappointed. I just wish all those, obviously that was all legal stuff, and all that stuff would have been dug into before this took place. Mayor Berkland, you called into our opposition meeting August 2024, stating that you could not hear public comment. Maybe if you had concern for the people, families, and businesses that this was affecting, you would have done anything in your power to hear our side or wait until you could. It would have been appreciated for Lincoln Mayor and Council, and I know I see a few familiar faces, to get to know the people behind the land before you decided our fates. I hear you say repeatedly that you want businesses to come to Lincoln, but in one decision, if not reversed, you may be pushing a lot of those businesses out of your city because we can't afford to stay here. Or the ones that will stay will push the cost onto their customers. Last fall, you voted on our forced annexation and passed it based on untruths that were shared with you. No good will ever come from lies, as there are several consequences to each lie that is spoken and therefore acted upon. What I've heard and witnessed in my short 14 months as a Lincoln resident is that lies got us here and they still continue. The people that are spreading the lies don't seem to see the wrong in their actions because they surround themselves with those who normalize it. But the blessing in this whole situation is choosing to offer each other grace. We will always have different opinions and make mistakes, but I have faith that you, City Council, can learn from this mistake. And now that you know better, you can do better. I am praying that you take this opportunity to think about reversing your decision. I want to thank my fellow landowners that were affected by the forced annexation. Your support absolutely means the world to me. I initially was just angry just for my own family, but soon felt that God called me to be a voice for people that felt unseen and unheard. I have the support of many others as well. You know who you are, and your strong conviction to stand up to something you believed was wrong kept me motivated to keep going when I wanted to give up. You are the true definition of together we can do great things. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak. I'm grateful for the opportunity to represent my fellow landowners. I appreciate your time.
Ms. Mills, I do want to make one correction to that. And this was some time ago, so I was out of town, I was out of the state when that meeting occurred, someone else chaired. Because when I got back to the state, Ms. Richards had asked for a meeting with me when there was a handful, maybe 10, 12 people that showed up for that meeting. And I apologized to everyone that you were not provided an opportunity to speak. I was not there for that meeting that you're talking about.
In August,
In August, I was
I
in
thought-
Montana.
I misunderstood. I
So-
appeared on Zoom and you said you could not hear public comment.
I think there was, Madam Mayor Council, Mary, you are correct. There was a meeting where she was up on Zoom and said that she couldn't hear. I'm misplacing which meeting it was, but there was a meeting where you were on Zoom and you couldn't hear and they were speaking. I want to say it was the one that I was officiating, could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure it was the one that I was officiating. It was my very first one too.
Okay.
And I remember the heat from that meeting, so that's
apologize.
why I was pretty good. No, do not apologize, not at all.
There was more than 8 people here.
There was indeed. So yes, you were on Zoom and made the comment that you couldn't hear.
Thank you for clarifying that. I always try to ensure that everyone is given an opportunity to speak.
Next up to speak is Tracy Zeeb. She's a petitioner for the North Territory landowners.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
She has spoken, a lot on my behalf also. Our story is a little bit different. When this stuff all took place, I was already annexed and I stood up, voiced my opinion. I told everyone you gotta fight hard. Because again, I mean,
I'll show you all my taxes. This was 19 as received.
Yeah, we can,
The county, and you guys all.
just so people online can hear.
What you're saying.
Oh, I'll turn it off.
Having fun, not really. Nothing that much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for providing this.
You guys can kind of pass around. It's my personal.
those are copies of our personal taxes. And like you said, in 2017, we were annexed. As it shows on there, in 19, there was no taxes paid to the city of Lincoln. Nothing. We don't know why. There was probably some legal tape that was gone through there that they didn't have to pay taxes. So when we purchased the building, our taxes were $1,000. Okay, me and my sister, this was our dream to come out, open as a kennel. Since we were little kids. Now we're getting hit by $6,000 a year. That's over $500 a month extra. And you know, if that's how it is, I'm okay with it. But what I'm not okay with is when we first got annexed, we were told 3 to 4%. That was it. That was it. That's the highest it's gonna go. And that's recorded. Now you're hearing about families that are gonna be getting hit with 50%, 70%, 80%. That's a big hit. When we were told 3 to 4%, that's it. As I've shown you all, that's a lie. I mean, and I'm not getting anything. We've been paying this for years. Was it in your guys' budget? When this annexation came out to get water and sewer out to all of us? Is that budgeted in this annexation?
that you guys know what it was gonna cost to bring water out to us and sewer out to us. We don't need any of those services. We all have our own services. This is why this is just, that's why I said you guys gotta fight, because I knew I'm gonna pay and I'm gonna pay and I'm gonna pay, and I'm not gonna get any services for, we work hard. We work every day. I mean, and we're paying out this money for what? Makes no sense. Do you know, have any idea what it's gonna cost to bring us water and sewer? You know how far down I am on the road? And to all the other families? Or are you just gonna stick it to us? I mean, let's be fair and human. I mean, what, do you even have an idea? Is there a timeline that I have to wait? Is there a legal timeline since you look up codes? How long do I have to wait before the city has to give me something? Do I just,
Talk to them, I can't give you legal advice.
well, you know what I'm saying? I mean, how long do I wait? Does anybody know if there's a timeline on this? It's just like you guys just don't care about who you're hurting and what you're doing to people. I mean, everyone's human. And it's just like how you guys make me feel like, you know, here, just keep paying, but we're not gonna give you anything for your money. I work hard. We both all work hard for this money. And it's like this guy that came up and said something, I feel like, holy cow, somebody actually gets it. It's theft. You are stealing from me and my family, my sister's family, you're stealing from us. All I gotta say.
Thank you.
Thank you. The attorney brought the updates to the process.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the memo that I sent out, I think that there's some things that I'm gonna need from the auditor, the engineer, and from the director of public works to just try to get our due diligence on our side done. And then we'll look at that to try to get this now on schedule for moving over.
Thank you. Item number 16, the employee takes on vehicle.
Was that what happened?
Councilman Bjornsted? Excuse me?
No one speaking?
We have to go through the legal process. So then we're gonna table it and come back.
So as this was put on to the agenda, I know the topic has come up a little bit now. But with the police department not having canine units, it's becoming even more important that we have a vehicle policy in place.
Great. Madam Mayor, Council, can we just pause so that the audience can exit if maybe, so that people on
Well, why don't we just take a.
I prefer to keep going.
Yes, thank you. I was talking more so.
Just, you asked, I said what I thought.
Okay.
Okay.
Work it through.
Perfect.
So yeah, as I was saying, the police department now has a K9 unit and having special equipment for that, being required for the transportation of the K9, it's important that we have a policy in place for this particular officer to be able to transport K9 for the staff to work. When I initially had this put on the agenda, we didn't have much for documentation at that time. Shortly before this meeting, the mayor was kind enough to forward a draft of a policy that I don't know if you created it or it worked with somebody else creating that draft. And the chief also has been working on that as well. So I will make sure that the chief has a copy of this one to see if there's any more tweaks that we would like to put on it before we bring it forward, to see if there's any legal issues or anything that might need to be adjusted and get it actually there for folks. If I have any questions or suggestions of anything at this point?
I have one question, Councilman Bjornstead, would the canine be a resident then of Lincoln?
I don't believe so.
Isn't that the whole point of having a canine for the city of Lincoln to reside in Lincoln?
I don't think that's a requirement. If I may ask the chief, the canine unit, is that essentially an on-call schedule at pretty much all times?
Yeah, correct.
My understanding is that current or prior to, we did not have a canine, so if a canine was required or requested, they would call.
It was typically Burley County, if I'm not mistaken. Burley County Sheriff's Department.
So then what is the benefit of having a canine and not living in Lincoln if Burley can probably get here just about the same amount of time?
Burley County may not do anything that helps be available.
But that's not the point though. The point of it is Bismarck or Burley could be here at the same time as in Lincoln one. If it lives outside, so it should be required that the canine should be a resident with the handler of Lincoln. So that it reads like, it just makes sense.
I think that'd be nice, but I don't see that as being a lot of requirements since it is very specific to what has to be done with this canine unit, and it's not just something that any officer can do.
But you don't have, and to be devil's advocate, you don't have Burley County canine living in Apple Creek, Valley City, right? You have it within the ETA, within the services that you are providing, right? Like, what is the
Sergeant
point of
Ballinger
having-
canine lives right down the street.
Yep, my neighbor.
And he's
from Bismarck.
They don't all live in town. They don't all live in the town of its service.
Point of order. I completely understand that. My point is being, it is way more economical to me and provide better services to all of us out here with the canine being in our town. I thought that was the whole point of getting a canine for out here. But this could be wrong.
I guess
Got the dog we left at the station.
I thought the point of having a canine unit for our department was so our department can use that and be less reliant on hoping that another department's canine unit will be available when we need it.
I haven't read through the policy yet, but is there anything that addresses a certain amount of miles within that it's?
I guess I haven't noticed anything as far as mileage. The copy that we have in front of us here is the one from the Bismarck Police Department for looking at operations. And I mainly got this copy to look through the people section of it, which starts number 15 is when it starts with the vehicle we kind of understand uses of the vehicle during any hop time, stuff like that. So,
And I think those are policy that we or you as council can make the decision on. You could have a 15-20 mile distance. I think the effectiveness of somebody to be able to be here within the city, I'm not sure how many of the police officers reside within the city of Lincoln. I believe it is just one. Unfortunately, and hopefully that changes where there are more opportunities. Probably a small town, I think that's an issue. You don't have everybody living here in town.
but I would say even even if the K-9 unit lived in Lincoln, there would still be some kind of policy that we have to have in place as far as them transporting the K-9 to and from the department.
100%.
So I guess if there's nothing more on that, I'll work on kind of consolidating some of this information and being in contact with the chief and seeing if there's any sort of maybe we're bringing it both to the councils.
Okay, any other questions, comments? We'll go on to. I do have a question with that, actually. So this is employee take-home vehicle policy. Is it going to be specific to K9, or is it going to also incorporate encompass
R2?
The other take-home vehicle?
I would, the information I have in front of me right now is specific to K9, but I feel that this can easily be converted over to including any others that may be necessary. When I spoke with the representative of the Bismarck Police Department, they made it clear that not all officers are able to have a take-home vehicle. It's more so very specific situations like the K9 units or take-home vehicles. I believe the representative said that their detectives have take-home vehicles and maybe the chief, but there really wasn't much beyond that. So I'm not looking to put a policy in that just any patrol officer can be taking vehicles home. They feel like it at the end of the day kind of thing. There would only be in specific situations. And then I also feel that this policy could then have some tweaks made to it and essentially work for a citywide policy, like for if the city office ends up having a vehicle that they use for people going to like meetings, conferences, anything like that. If the conference takes place 3 hours away and the vehicle is then used for going to the night and it's brought home at the end of the day or going to the office again, whatever, like I don't have anything specific for that, but I feel like the K9 policies would be kind of like a big grounding start, and then things can kind of work out.
Mayor, Councilman. Councilman Gordon said, just when you guys are doing that, it is part of the employee handbook that I'm working on too for a take-home vehicle, because it was in our current employee handbook. So whatever changes or whatever that you guys make, just kind of keep me informed. And also for the city office having a vehicle, we are not covered under the insurance plan because we are not safety or those type of workers. Don't look at us having.
Oh,
All right, so do you want this on the agenda that for?
I feel like probably can have it on as old business for the next meeting, if anything changes in the meeting.
Speaking of insurance, it does seem like this we need to be shared with our insurance company to make sure that we're covered, our officers are covered, K9.
Yep, everything's covered.
There.
I was just, I believe the chief had mentioned at a meeting a month or two ago that he did already check insurance for coverage.
Speak on that. I believe I have an email from the insurance agent saying that that is all part of their insurance already.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, agenda item 18, SEH engineering report.
Madam Mayor, council members. I know I usually ask if you guys would like me to read the whole report or shorten it up this evening. So I'm gonna guess that you'd like me to shorten it up this evening. Okay, so the first key point I have for you is that I missed a meeting in the list of meetings attended That would be a rate study meeting that was held September 3rd. Something else that was not included in the memo itself, but I did give you all a handout, had to do with the permit valuation report from the county regarding permit types and those values. So just to note that in the month of September, there were 9 total permits for the city of Lincoln, which amounted to a construction value of $580,666. As of year to date, we are 33 permits ahead of where we were in 2024. And we are 20,303,974 in construction value ahead of where we were last year at this time. And that would conclude my shortened report. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those right now. No questions?
Council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Loretta.
All right, we'll go on to agenda item 9, agenda item, Attorney Rockenby.
I have nothing else to add.
He really wants to get out of it.
All right, and council, as far as portfolios, what are your wishes as far as, do you want me to be calling one by one? Or do you want to provide, in a situation where I say, are there any portfolio updates that you would like presented to the council?
I like the second option.
Okay.
I would say I'm fine either way.
I'm fine either way. It's what I would try to do personally, maybe submit an update for council. That would help me with my newsletter updates, which I have failed to get in on time twice now. So that's kind of the goal I'm setting for myself.
All right, absolutely. So what I will do, I will ask you then to provide your updates via email, CC, or actually to the auditor for inclusion into our packets. And if during the meeting, you would like to share that with the community, then we'll call for that.
Good.
All right. So, and just as a reminder, they're due Thursday before the council meeting, 1 week before the council meeting, if it's to be in the or in
It should be
packet.
Thursday by 5 o'clock. But because I do review them again on Monday morning, that would be the very latest, but it should be Thursday after.
Perfect, so we'll do that.
So you are ready.
So at this point, then we can try this out. Portfolio updates, are there any?
I have none.
I would have a couple. As far as the rural fire departments, they had their open house for the North Fire Station last night. And their new fire engine is supposed to be delivered next week. Excited. And for the police department, Officer Schneider and K9 Schneider passed their drug certification test this morning. Officer Mahoney starts his law enforcement training academy here in the next couple weeks. And the chief has been working on updating the city's emergency operations plans and is hopefully going to have a presentation for us sometime in November.
A lot of things going on. So. And one thing that I would like to mention, again, there are multiple opportunities available for the citizens within Lincoln to serve the community. They would include, not limited to, planning and zoning, Board of Adjustments, Economic Development Committee, and the Lincoln Tree Board. So we have that form the citizen interest form available online. And we also have them within the office and at the back of the table. So we had quite a turnout today, which I think is wonderful. And if any of you would like to submit, that would be appreciated. So anything else for rid of?
I have nothing.
All right, well, it is 9:20 and we stand adjourned.